I saw it. It's on my whatever Prime library now. Well, Prime Video, not
Okay.
but to rent it or buy it is like whatever. It's like $30 Canadian. It's like I'm not doing that.
I actually saw that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's wild.
It's wild that you saw a
Did you
movie.
unintentionally see it, or you intentionally saw it?
No, I intentionally saw it with friends. Awful movie.
Awful.
Terrible movie.
Too woke for
Dude,
you?
I don't
Was it woke?
trust anything
I don't know, I
that
didn't see
comes
it.
out of any of these places at this point. Like I'm such a boomer at this point. Like I'm just like, nope. Oh, did you see that movie? The answer is always no. I haven't watched a movie, like a new movie from Hollywood in like years. I can't. I'm disappointed literally every time. Every time I get excited, I'm like, oh, I'm going to check this out. It's just mid at best. And that's assuming it doesn't have like random, like anti-capitalist or like fucking anti-white themes as like a major part, or like some add-in that they had to throw in just to remind you like, you're a piece of shit because you're white, right? Like, which is already like half the goddamn things. But
Well,
like assuming none of that is that.
Do you have some specific examples of the anti-white? I can certainly see Hollywood anti-capitalist, but there's nothing. But maybe I'm just not paying attention. But like, do you have any examples of like anti-white?
There's nothing. There's nothing where it's like it's very, very rare, other than like the video games industry, where they're just like gonna come out and say anything, right? But it's just like how like someone's like, hey, check out this new show. You know, it's a fun sitcom where the dad is a useless, dope idiot and the mom is actually the smart one. And it's just like the themes of the message just, it's like, okay, I've seen this trope.
That's like
so
in
many
commercials
times.
too,
I feel
right?
like, yeah, it's like I feel like the right-wing version of Anita Sarkeesian, where I'm just like, these tropes, I hate them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, so I just don't care anymore. I just can't, like, I don't know. Like maybe somebody someday will do something that really brings me in.
I sent you an invite for the collab thing.
Oh shit, yeah. I'm not getting it. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find you. That wasn't the issue with the Fantastic Four. The issue.
No, I'm saying assuming that isn't, they're usually just mid.
Well, this was worse than just mid. It was just a bad movie, and it was bad not for any kind of like woke themes or anything like that. It was just bad because the acting sucked, and there was like multiple times in which they tried to like do jokes that fell flat, in my opinion, like really hard to the point where like nobody in the theater laughed. And it was like pretty. I thought.
Was there anyone else in the theater?
Yes, there was.
This is like Reddit energy kind of jokes or something.
Yeah, like, no, like here, I'll give you the best example. So there was this like
Careful, spoilers. Prime is gonna really freak out.
I guess it's a new movie. Okay, well, I guess I won't do you the favor and spoil you this movie for you. But if you watch it, there's gonna be a scene where you're like they're like building up to this joke, and then it happens, and it's very much not funny. The one good thing I'll say about the movie is the like the theme of it. It's pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Well, I will let you know when the embargo is over. We can discuss it.
Video gamer.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the other half of the crew kind of dropped out of this.
Really? Oh, the people dropped?
You want to talk about Israel Palestine?
Yeah, we can.
We got Ali here.
Hell yeah.
And his initial opinion was in agreement with me. So
wait.
Blackwood has his token Muslim, and so I guess we're good to go.
I have my Muslim now on the argument.
My agreement is that like if this thing on paper goes through, yeah, sure.
I agree.
But it isn't. So like, you know.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. If here, I'll say this: if that plan is put into effect on like as written, every point, I think it's a great plan.
See, my issue is that BB literally just came here and bought all these American influencers and is wants to buy TikTok and wants to push the like propaganda. Like he openly said, "Hey, we need American influencers to push Israeli propaganda in America for like." As if this is a benefit to America for some reason, whatever it may be. Yeah. So like, no, I don't know that he's going that Bibi's going to be this take this path to peace, right? They'll accept the deal. They're not going to. They haven't presented it to Hamas yet, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
But here's the cool thing: the plan even has the contingency if Hamas rejects the deal, right?
Like I said, I did a quick read, so I'm actually going to pull this up right now.
Yeah, there's a bullet point. There's a bullet point in it where it's like, in the event that Hamas rejects the deal, then this new authority is going to have jurisdictions, going to take jurisdiction away from the IDF in the areas that the IDF currently controls. So it's literally piecemeal. They're going to like piecemeal peace plan it.
Okay, let's see. But so Prime, was I correct about your issue being that like, you know, now they're talking about an actual plan, and the plan that probably isn't going to happen regardless. You know, is that your contention, or what's your issue there?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the plan?
This is an embarrassing distraction. What audience we have currently. So Trump released a 20-point plan, a Gaza peace plan. He announced it today with Netanyahu and like a joint thing. And this is supposed to be presented to the world.
We say this plan is a piecemeal plan. Is that when the IDF cooks food in the name of peace right next to a bunch of Gazans?
The Gazans get aid under the plan.
So anyway, it's a 20-point plan. Yeah, so that's been presented, and now supposedly we're waiting for is Hamas to say yes to the plan, and then we will have peace in the Middle East, as Trump announced. Yeah, so my opinion of this plan, it's 20 points, and I mean, it was presented like on Twitter, right? No
ethnic cleansing in the plan.
Which the way we do political announcements today, but assuming there's nothing more to this plan, right? Like I'm working off what's actually been presented. The structure of it, yeah, that sounds fine. But like this is just a completely and utterly embarrassing distraction.
So par for the course.
It's par for the course, yeah, especially for the Trump administration. But actually, to be clear, this is a bipartisan embarrassment as well, right? Because we've been down this road before. Hamas has agreed to at least a half dozen, probably more than that. I've lost count. Half dozen peace treaties. Hamas doesn't stop saying yes to peace treaties. It says Hamas says yes to peace treaties that Israel puts forward, or America does on Israel's behalf, right? It keeps saying yes, and then Israel goes, we got to change the terms of the agreement immediately, right? And remember, there was that thing that happened at the very start of the Trump administration, that really big event that happened here. Oh yeah, there was that ceasefire that Israel agreed to and immediately broke.
Or Israel killing the negotiators in Qatar, or every chance they get, actually.
And assassinating peace negotiators, right? You would think that would be a message to the rest of the people, but we got rubes here who are falling for this. So no, I'm not. I don't give a fuck about this plan. Like, I want most of what the plan entails, right? I want most of that. I'm going to qualify it, right? But I want most of what that plan entails. But it's like not going to happen. Why are we doing this a song and dance, right? Why do we understand that I think the first point of the plan talks about, I don't know why you're raising it. We'll talk later. It's just discussing. But the fourth point of the plan talks about like a hostage exchange, right? This thing that shows it's fanciful because the Israelis, the Israeli government, doesn't give a fuck about the hostages. They've been very clear about that the entire time, right? Not with their words. They'll say, "Oh my God, if this would end if only Hamas would give back the hostages." Hamas has agreed to give back the hostages many times before, including in that ceasefire that happened earlier this year that Israel broke. Right? Hamas has agreed to give back the hostages. They can't stop agreeing to give back the hostages. But Israel keeps breaking with it. Israel doesn't want it. Now, the Israeli people, they feel differently. I think they generally want the hostages back, right? But this is a great piece of propaganda that they can be, that the Israeli, the government can use to manipulate them. And they do it all the time, right? And also the foreign audience, right? Because idiots online on Twitter, right, will also say, well, why don't they get back the hostages? So there's that, right? And there's the other parts of the plan, like, unless I'm missing it, I did read the whole thing, but unless I'm forgetting, a
Yeah, I'm
piece,
just reading
right?
through
Like,
it now.
like Lactoid said, there is a provision if Israel, excuse me, Hamas does not follow through, right? But I don't remember, and if I'm missing it, then I do apologize. But I don't remember a part that has some sort of enforcement mechanism if Israel doesn't follow through, right? Israel, the one who has a track record of breaking these agreements. So how is this real? Israel, who had if Trump thinks this is a real plan, right? It's hilarious because Bibi's going to pants him. He's pantsed Biden before him, right? He's going to get you all hyped up, right? Biden did something similar, right? He's like, "Oh, we've got a great plan," and the Israelis, Biden has done this thing that we're seeing right now. He's done exactly this in the past, right? And then it led to complete and utter humiliation. So I don't know why we should expect anything different. I want it to be different, and if it is different, okay, right? And I'll come back and I'll give Trump his flowers. I will, right? Hold me to it. But I have because I can look at past evidence, recent past as evidence, right? I can do predictions, and I can say this is complete bullshit. That even if they do agree, like the Hamas agrees, and they do some sort of ceremony, right? Guess what's going to happen? This is going to find a reason to break the deal. So we'll see.
Yeah. So wait, real quick. I kind of so the other side of the coin, right? After thinking about it and looking at this real quick, this comes up real quick after Israel comes and starts talking about how their propaganda needs to change and has a whole discussion about propaganda change. And maybe this is a new tactic, right? They're like, hey, listen, if you concede to the Palestinians, or if you even say Palestinian a bunch, right? They refer to Gaza as Gaza, but then the Palestinians, right? Like they understand that people probably have an issue with calling them Gazans or whatever it may be. I feel like this could also just be another one. It's just a play, right? They placate the Palestinians, the pro-Palestinians for now. To Prime's point, it's a distraction, and it's just a tool to prove that Trump isn't owned by Israel, or that we aren't owned by Israel. Look, we're even conceding a few points. We're conceding a few things. It says at point 19, right, which the Gaza. We recognize the aspiration of the Palestinian people to be that they want a state, they want self-determination. So I don't know, it could just be a little ruse, as they say. I don't want it to be, and if it's not, and if this actually goes through, fucking kudos. But yeah, to Prime's point, there's no hold to Israel's obligation, right? What happens if Israel doesn't follow through? Is there any intervention on that side or no?
Well, I answered the question. And then I'll ask you another question. I mean, the first point on it, I'm sorry. I'm reading through it, for having utterly and completely won this conflict. I think Israel's made a lot of concessions here in terms of the disproportionate amount of hostage provisions, retreating from occupied areas.
Not to believe it's going to happen.
Well, hold on. So obviously, we're in the realm of assuming it's going to happen, right?
No, I'm not. No, we're not in the realm of that. That's we can't do that.
We're discussing the plan.
In that realm,
right? The point is we're discussing.
We talk about this.
Follow the thought experiment.
Yeah, just follow with me. So,
okay,
assuming that this plan is carried out, Israel is making a lot of concessions, and the winner of a conflict usually isn't expected to make a whole bunch of concessions, right? This is the same thing that I run into all the time when people ask me about like the Ukraine-Russia thing. Like, well, what's Russia going to give up? They're winning. Like the winning side doesn't have to make a bunch of concessions. That's how winning works. Assuming that this plan is put into effect, I think it's very conciliatory. I think there's a couple things in here that really address the main concerns that I had, such as point 12, no one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will have to be free to do so and free to return.
Yeah.
That is a massive, like if 12 is put into place, that is massively cool, right? Because the ethnic cleansing shit was my concern. And if this plan is put into place, this doesn't have any of that. It actually
Israelis
seems to be
establishing a right to return.
it's in the plan, and then it's in the
No
plan.
one will be. Let me just read it so we're not confused. No one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return. We will encourage people to stay and offer them the opportunity to build a better Gaza.
Yeah. So if that is followed,
Free to
right?
return whenever they want.
I
Or-
think that's
Centuries down the line.
really good, and I think there's parts of this peace plan that I think are really good. And I think that if Netanyahu's already agreed to it, right? At least publicly, right? He's already come out and said that he agrees to the
You've
peace
agreed
plan.
to lots of things before. Yeah. Like I said, I'm like Lactoid, I know you feel exasperated with the way I'm.
Yeah, you just want them to take these Israelis in good faith.
I'm just like telling you the thing, like reality. Hey,
Can I?
You have to
Netanyahu
negotiate with them. They're
lots
winning.
of- a lot of shit already.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So when it seems like, can
You
we
talking to me?
separate?
Or
Yeah.
Lactoid?
Sorry, I was just off. I was just looking to the side for a second.
Sure.
Can we separate, in one instance, your kind of black-pilled belief, which I think is not necessarily wrong, to distrust that the plan will go through with the plan itself, right? Like I think we like put maybe a wall between those for a minute, right? And
Yeah, sure.
engage with the plan itself, like, because I totally understand you being like, I don't believe this is going to happen because it's too good to be true, and if something's too good to be true, it usually isn't true, right? And I totally understand the skepticism that the deal is intended for that. I totally understand the skepticism of maybe this plan is a propaganda design to be like, look how conciliatory Israel is, right? And it's Hamas that won't do anything. And you know what? Since they broke down communications on point 17, now we're gonna bomb them into fucking oblivion, and we're the good guys while we're bombing them. I totally get all of that, right? But if we can just look at the plan itself and say, okay, if this is a genuine goal of the Trump administration, and these are the genuine policies that they're going to strive for in this, is that a good thing? Is this a good plan? Right? Like, I totally understand being like, I don't think it's going to happen because Israel's going to fuck it up, and they're going to spin this in such a way that it's Hamas's fault, because Hamas they're easy to fucking propagandize against. They're fucking murderous terrorists
That's why
that all deserve to be
supported them.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
But yeah, sure. All right, fine. But later on, I want to go back to my black pilling. But yeah, if you want to ask me anything else, I won't bring it up.
no, I'm not saying don't bring it up. I'm just saying, like, maybe we can like treat these as two things,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Okay.
number one, this part of the deal is good. Number two, I don't think the deal is actually going to go through for these
Okay.
reasons, as opposed
Sure.
to combining those arguments.
The other thing too to address is the black pulling part. You have to negotiate with Israel. Like, they're winning. What are you going to do? Beat them?
Sorry, is this to me?
Well, yeah, kind of. Like, you're saying, I don't trust Israel's going to go through with any deal. Like, the only way this stops is if we get some kind of deal between Israel and the people of Gaza.
Well, no, there's more than one way for this to stop, right? There's the U.S. actually, and the international community actually putting pressure on Israel, right? Like stopping the shipment, stopping the aid, right? Like boycotts, investment, and sanctions, right? Like that's another way to do that. That's just the one we just don't want to discuss, right? But I understand what you're trying to say is that assuming, right, that our politics doesn't massively shift tomorrow, then we have to deal with the field as it is, right? Which would involve like making a deal for Israel to agree to.
Yeah.
But I acknowledge that. I know that.
Okay.
But then there's that other thing that I'm not discussing right now.
No, you can discuss both. I'm just saying let's compartmentalize.
I know, no, friend. I get you. I'm not trying to criticize you.
For ease of conversation, it wasn't even like an attack on your beliefs.
Yeah.
Right? Just I see. Here's my initial reaction, right? Because I'm just reading this now because my sister came over earlier. I didn't look in, like I skimmed through the plan. My initial reaction is this: is Israel is too conciliatory in this for me to buy it. It's so listen, Israel, in terms of nations that have warred against people within their territory, right? They have been historically the most conciliatory nation in the world, throughout history. Like no nation has been more concerned with public opinion about them being the good guys compared to Israel. I'm just not saying Israel's a good guy here. I'm just saying that Israel is more conciliatory than historically basically any other nation. But even still, it's really conciliatory. And that puts alarm bells in my head that the goal of this is a pipe dream. Like you couldn't get the Camp Casey Accords to go through. This is better than those. And so like that's weird to me that you're winning a war and you're putting I have a hard time buying that they care that much what other nations think about them in that regard, or that they feel that pressured by nations when they still have so much lobbying power, so much social media influence, so much money, so many politicians that like call it anti-Semitism to fucking boycott their products. Like there's a lot, you know what I mean? Like they have a lot of influence and power in politics and in media, and it's really conciliatory. And it's just, my alarm bells are going, they're going to find a way to make Hamas break this deal. And then when it happens, they're going to treat that like they have carte blanche to start another bombing campaign.
I don't know about
because
that.
I don't, but maybe I'm wrong. I want to be wrong.
Look at
I want to
13.
be wrong about that.
I think point number 13 gives Israel really what they're looking for here, right? Because let's look at what actually the end goal is for Gaza after this plan comes into place, right?
They have to decouple politically, and they also have to give up their weapons. Hamas
hold on. It is the complete removal of Hamas from any kind of political power. It is the complete demilitarization of the entire strip. It is the basic.
Does it? Where's the demilitarization of the whole
13.
strip? I think it just said
demilitarization of Gaza.
Yeah, specifically, Hamas and other factions agree to not have any role in the governance of Gaza, directly, indirectly, or in any form. Okay, so Hamas is gone. All military terror and offensive infrastructure, including tunnels and weapon production facilities, will be destroyed and not rebuilt. There will be a process of demilitarization of Gaza under the supervision of independent monitors, which will include placing weapons permanently beyond use through an agreed process of decommissioning and supported by an internationally funded buyback and reintegration program, all verified by independent monitors. That right there gives Israel, that gives them a lot. Right, it means that Hamas is gone.
I was reading the other one where Hamas had to give up their weapons, but complete
demilitarization.
I'm actually now against this.
Hold on, before you're against it though, it's a lot more realistic now though, isn't it, in terms of the Israeli side?
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I agree with you because I mean being able to get rid of weapons from all of the Gazans is. Yeah, I mean that is something Israel would obviously deeply want.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
I mean,
I endorse this plan. I endorse. I've heard enough. I endorse this plan. Full-throatedly endorse all 20 points. I hope Trump gets it done. If he gets it done,
I mean, I'd have to go through it like on my own and really think about what each one means. But on its face, I'm worried that it won't go through. Still. I am a little black belt on that, but I don't know how I feel. I'm like 50-50 on whether or not I like it. It looks. I'm leaning towards liking the plan more than disliking the plan. But I definitely think that like if I go through line by line and be like, what does this mean? I'm gonna find issues with it. Like right off the bat, I don't know that I like getting rid of every gun from people. Right? Like that's a human right. But I also understand why Israel would want to fucking get rid of their
Yeah.
guns because they can't stop using them on them.
Yeah. So, I decidedly like the plan more than I don't like the plan. It's just like like looking at it through a real lens. I mean, like the point that our friend Scott just made, not about the necessarily human right part, but the idea of the militarization here, when I mean the occupation is still happening, right? Like this isn't demilitarization with also, oh yeah, we're going to pull back to 1967 borders, right? And that's the end of the settlements, right? Like the conflict isn't over, right? The conflict doesn't end here. And that's when you would think the opposing force would demilitarize. No, this is demilitarized like right this second. And just assume that international community that has abandoned you, right? As the genocide has been unfolding in front of them, assume they'll all have your best interest in mind, right?
Well, hold on. Point 15, right? So the United States will work with Arab and international partners to develop a temporary international stabilization force to immediately deploy in Gaza. The ISF will train and provide support to vetted Palestinian police forces in Gaza and will consult with Jordan and Egypt, who have extensive experience in this field. The force will be long-term internal security solution, right? So, I mean, if you're talking about the concept of settlers moving in, when the plan has right to return and the plan has an internal security force that is involving Egypt and Jordan, that is
Egypt,
at a minimum a
no.
very much slowing down of like settler encroachment, because that makes settler encroachment much
No, it doesn't.
harder when
Come on,
there's
no, it
an
doesn't.
internationally
settlers in
recognized
Gaza.
internal police
no.
force.
Yeah. So West Bank is where most of the settler activity is happening, and the thing that will ensure no Palestinian state, right?
Yeah,
Like
but this is a plan about
expansion.
Gaza. This is not a plan about
but
West
hold on,
Bank.
like I said, the conflict isn't over, right? That's how I introduced this, right? I said, hey, like the issue of the occupation has not settled, right? But in that environment, you're saying this other side should disarm when the conflict isn't over, right? The conflict wasn't just about Gaza. Why did the attack happen in the first place, right? Like there's a larger plan here. And then, all right, which sides do you say? Which sides will we will consult, right? Which nations, right? Oh, Egypt and Jordan. You mean Israel's close allies, Egypt and Jordan, right? Just because they're Muslim doesn't mean that they're all on the side of the Palestinians. Egypt and Jordan, right? Like I'm talking about specifically their government officials, right? Their people feel differently. Yeah, like who backed Israel the entire time? Yes, I'm sure they'll have plenty to say. Like that doesn't mean though that I think that necessarily if Egypt and Jordan were involved, right, then this would just be a disaster. This would be another a repeat of the GHF, right, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, right? That's the fake aid situation they set up in Gaza after they got rid of the UN, right? Distributing aid. They set that up and using it as a killing field for Palestinians. I don't think it necessarily will end up like that, but I'm just saying, like, these are specifically the ones they called out are specifically Israel's allies, right? The most staunchest allies within the area. So, I mean, something to consider, right? And like, look, so this is like my smallest gripe, but also like it's endemic of the rest of the problems. 18. An interfaith dialogue process will be established based on the values of tolerance and peaceful coexistence to try and change mindsets and narratives of Palestinians and Israelis by emphasizing the benefits that can be derived from peace, right? This bullshit. 18, right? Now, again, like, it sounds great, right? Hey, we want a dialogue and we want to turn towards peace, right? But this is like liberal nonsense, like distilled, right? And it shows like how the rest of the plan is separate from the conflict at large. This conflict is about power. It's not about like Israelis and Palestinians who just don't understand how to get along. If we could just get them down to a table, right, and sit across from one another, they could just work this shit out. No, it's about land, it's about resources, it's about power. That's all it's ever been about. And like this combined with like the other parts of this plan kind of shows that like this is simply a PR stunt, like for the world, for specifically America, right? For the American people. Hey, look, Trump is doing a thing, right? And this can be played on Fox News for months now, right? Talking about the great conciliator, Donald Trump, right? Irrespective of like whatever happens to the actual plan. So yeah, I don't believe it at all.
Right? Okay, but like again, I understand your skepticism. What would you change about the plan that would make the plan more likely to succeed? Because that seems to be your gripe, is the inability of the plan to be a success. How could you change this plan that would make it
I'll give you an
that
example
Israel
right
would
now.
be more likely to accept this? Because
sorry.
you seem to be selling the idea that Israel's the one that's not gonna accept. Israel's gonna be the one to tank it. So how would you make this better for Israel? Which would be a better plan.
Tanking it regardless of it being better for them or not is the issue. Right?
Hold on. Let me speak for myself. Hold on, I got this.
Yeah.
I can't do what you just asked, right? I thought you were going to ask me something different there. I can't like Israel has had like there's been a whole list of plans that Israel's rejected that have been amazing as well, right? In fact, better for them than this plan that they have rejected. And so when you're saying, given if all the Palestinians agree to like a suicide, well then yeah, I think that's pretty much what they would like, and that'd be the best plan. I think they signed the dotted line on that one. But
I mean, that's a good quip, right? But that's not.
I'm not trying.
I'm
not trying to be calling. I'm not trying. I absolutely am talking seriously. Please don't mistake me for not talking. I take this extremely seriously.
You think the Donald Trump administration could realistically put a plan that says that all Muslims must kill themselves?
No, I'm not saying
and then
that.
Israel would accept that
sarcastic.
plan.
I'm saying
that's what I said. I said that's a good quip, but that's not a real plan.
Hold on. I'm not quipping. I'm saying, hey, what you're asking me for is utterly ridiculous, and I gave you a ridiculous plan to show how ridiculous that is. That's what I'm saying. I'm taking this extremely seriously. So anyway, right? Like I thought we were going to say, hey, what would in what ways would you have to change this plan for myself, Prime, that I would take this more seriously, and what I would think the rest of the world should take this more seriously. So I was going to give you an example of that, right? But for Israel, no, Israel is not to make it better for Israel. Israel is not an honest partner in all of this. So let's we got to put that aside. Anyway, so my suggestion would be, please, just looking at 18, right? We can go back to that. They're talking about, hey, let's have a dialogue, between the faiths, right? And kind of work this out. Well, this is not a problem between the faiths, right? This is again misunderstanding the conflict, as many Westerners do, right? Because of propaganda. This is billed as a fight between Muslims and Jews, and they just can't get along. It's been like that for thousands of years. No, again, it's an exercise of power, right? What I would do in place of 18 would be put an honest to God Truth and Reconciliation Committee, right? Like one where, hey, Israeli crimes would have to be put on display, where people can confront their abusers, right? They work it out the way the South Africa did, right? So the Truth and Reconciliation Council's there, right? Like that was an amazing moment of actually reckoning with what's happened, and the same could be true for also the other side, right? For any Palestinian crimes that took place. But that would be a real moment of reckoning, right? And then so they had another bullet point there about giving the opportunity for Hamas to give up its weapons and to reintegrate or something like that. Well, I would do the same thing for IDF, the IDF war criminals, right? I would say these individuals, who, and like we're talking about like the worst of the worst here, right? Um, the one, I mean, these people are very well documented. They should also be given that opportunity, right? To repent in front of the world, like that would be something serious, I think, while keeping the rest of the
Okay.
framework in place.
Okay, so I have a couple issues, obviously. First and foremost, I agree with the idea that this isn't a purely religious issue, right? Like anytime someone says, "Oh, this is like this can," any univariate analysis is almost always going to be wrong when you're dealing with politics and governments and nations. But the idea that there isn't a religious element to this is also just nonsense. The idea that there isn't a religious hatred that Muslims have for Jews, that the idea that the
Um,
Hamas charter itself
I'd say
does.
ethnic hatred. It's more of a racism than it is because of religion, right? It's because the Israelis and the people that invaded and so on and so forth are the Yahud, they are the Jews, right? That's just like the terminology they're using, but like
Yeah, I mean,
so much as
Judaism.
for like
I mean, like,
religious issues, no.
if you're taking issue with me saying religious, Judaism, Jews is always going to be a weird one because it's both, right? Because it is both an ethnicity and a religion, and it's treated as both, right? Like there's no other religion where
I'm
like
saying I don't think
being
it's the
Muslim
Muslims
means
versus the Jews. I think it's the Arabs versus the Jews, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So Scott,
it's a different Jews.
Scott, I hear what you're trying to say on the religious front, right? I would just say that like everything that I said previously before is correct, right? And that this is an expression of a competition of resources for power, for land and all that, right? But
Mhm.
the conflict is oftentimes expressed religiously, right? Hey, the reason why I should have this land, right, this great resource, is because of God said so, right? The reason why we need to band together as a group of people and fight the invaders is because they are a religious taint on the land, right? Like the evil Jews, right? Like we look at other competitions for resources, right? And when they're divided along ethnic lines, right? Well, then you're going to have some sort of ethnic bigotry, racial bigotry, right? It's still the same thing, right? Still that competition. If that competition wasn't there, maybe the conflict oftentimes isn't there at all, right? But it's certainly expressed when we're talking about it, right? Hey, I hate those N words. I hate those, whatever, right?
If this gets
Yeah,
done,
I mean, like,
would you give him
my-
the Nobel
my-
Peace
right.
Prize? If it actually gets done, if the plan
Actually fully accomplished,
Yep.
and like wait, and the Palestinians are returned.
Will you personally
as
give
so-
it to him, Prime?
so-
no,
and not
like would
the-
you support that? Like, let's say this peace plan goes into effect and like Israel actually follows through under pressure from Trump. Like Trump was like, blah blah blah, and he actually pressures Israel and they do it. Do you think Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize?
5
In the
years,
country-
5 years of consistency. I'm down. I got you.
Okay. What about you,
If
Prime?
it happens, if it works,
If this works
That's
out.
going to be a posthumous. That's going to be a posthumous plan.
Yeah.
5 years, Trump's going to be dead.
Probably.
I'm saying it now.
Yeah, he's old.
Hold on. Let's be clear. Scott said that he's the ANCAP here, not Prime. So when this played in the future, this wasn't a leftist plan to get rid of Trump. But anyway,
What?
I followed it.
it's sorry. I'm joking around, friend.
How dare you?
Yeah. So Lactoid. Would I support giving the Nobel Peace Prize to the man who bombed Iran? That one?
Yes.
Right? I want to make sure we're talking
That's
about
the one and only.
Yeah.
I'm not the only person that's bombed Iran, but
Yeah, that's fair, right? The individual who, right, despite all like your assurances, right, is now trying to extend the Ukrainian Russian war. That one? Just want to make sure we're talking about the same person.
Same person. If he does this,
Yeah, the same one who was bombing Yemen into the dirt, right? Just
Well,
a while ago.
Trump wasn't bombing Yemen. He was
No, no,
supporting
he's
the
bombed
Nobel
blockade.
Afghanistan.
Peace
Absolutely.
Prize.
Yeah, he did.
actually
He
for
was
what
flying the
happened.
jet.
I thought you
Yeah, he did.
not in his. Are you talking about his first term, or are you talking about
No,
recent?
second term. Second term.
Oh, okay. Because first
Yeah, yeah.
term, Obama was bombing Yemen.
Obama
Right,
was,
and then
it continued on to
Trump
Trump. Yeah.
Trump wasn't bombing. He was just supporting the blockade with Saudi Arabia.
No,
They
no, no.
weren't
Well, I
actively
mean,
bombing.
by
I mean,
by
he was giving
well,
weapons
Huh.
to people that were bombing.
Obama, as far as I know, Obama never actually also bombed Yemen. It's like he gave weapons to Saudi Arabia and they bombed them, right? Saudi Arabia has no
Both gave-
Saudi
military
Arabia
gave
needs
credential,
weapons to us for.
Both gave weapons to Saudi Arabia. Obama as Pentagon, right? I won't say it's Obama specifically because the deep state often works on their own interests, not listening to the president. This happened with Obama just as much as it happens with Trump, right?
Yeah.
Was funneling a lot of weapons from like Turkey and other nations into terrorist organizations. And then Trump attempted to put a stop to that. And then the Pentagon just started using the DOD instead of the CIA. They found a loophole to disobey what Trump was ordering because Trump was ordering the stopping of funneling weapons to terrorists. And then the deep state just kind of did it with like the USS Picatinny. And then they used Eastern European countries, Ukraine being one of them, to supply weapons to terrorists so that they looked like Russian weapons. And we spent billions of dollars of American taxpaying dollars to directly disobey Trump's orders so that we could make it look like the Russians were funding terrorists when we were funding terrorists.
USS
Picatinny in Pentagon. That's what you should Google, and you'll find more information on that.
Well, thank you so much. But
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So did Lackwood went to
Well, I don't know if you wanted to go on and making sure we're
Obama does have a
identifying
Nobel Peace
the
Prize.
right person. I think we're talking about the same person, but
okay, yeah,
but
that
he's
one,
orange. He's the president. You know that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, sure. Well,
should
that
he
one,
get
right?
the Nobel Peace Prize
did-
if he ends the war in Gaza under this plan?
No.
Okay.
Like no, right? Like I think that still is what I still is what the Nobel Peace Prize like is. I think
I'm kind of with you, but it's already trash. It's already just
Obama won
Obama
it.
got it. You know what I mean? Like Obama.
that's true, and that's also trash.
Droned
That's
fucking weddings.
awful.
Like
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, but if Obama can
so
win
here's so I have a question
That's
about
I think he should get it.
you had mentioned earlier, Prime, that Israel had rejected several better peace deals that were better for Israel than the current deal. And as we go through the deal looks pretty good, and you seem to have a lot of issues because it doesn't stop the conflict. It doesn't stop. So what would you say was a better deal for Israel that Israel rejected in the past, and why is that deal better for Israel than this presumed 20-point plan?
My problem for the deal isn't that it doesn't stop the conflict. I mean, like if the deal went through, right, then it would stop the conflict. My problem is that it's unlike that. This seems like a PR stunt.
Right. But assuming it's not
right.
a PR stunt, what you made the claim that this deal is worse than other deals that Israel has rejected. What is a deal that Israel has rejected in the past that they were the ones that made it fall through that is better than this deal?
Understood. Yeah, I don't have it
because I don't think that's
pulled up.
true.
I'm gonna have to pull up because there was an IDF negotiator. Let's see, negotiator. I'm searching through my notes. I have extensive notes on all these things.
Yeah, it's not like my
Gershon-
area of expertise. I've just never heard of a deal better than this that Israel themselves rejected.
Gershon Baskin is a hostage negotiator, Middle East director for the International Communities Organization. Morgan Debate Panel, and he said the following: I received from them Hamas in August last year a commitment to end the war. Israeli captain, negotiator, and activist Gershon Baskin says that as early as August 2024, Hamas offered a written ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza and release all Israeli captives twice. The Israeli government refused.
That's not a better deal for Israel, though, right? I mean, not when this deal has like demilitarization, getting rid of Hamas as a political structure. Like this is very clearly a better deal than that deal for Israel. So what is the better deal?
Summary of ceasefire. Jeremy's got a summary of ceasefire negotiations after Steve will comments. Let's see if this one has a summary.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Not all these the texts have been revealed, but some, I believe, some of them have. But I got to search for it. A few notes.
I mean, I don't deny that it might be possible, but like I'm looking for like
I have to look for the text.
Deal before.
Yeah.
Well, you said that you that they had rejected several.
Oh, no,
that were
they definitely
better for
rejected. No,
them.
they've absolutely rejected several deals. But I'm like, you're asking me for the text. I don't
that
have
wasn't the claim.
text.
The claim that you made was that they rejected several deals that were better than this deal for Israel, and this deal seems a lot better for Israel than any other deal that I've ever heard of, or presumed, plan that has been put forward. In the sense that this doesn't just end the war temporarily, this would get rid of Hamas as a governmental structure. This would put in an impartial policing system so that they don't have to worry about policing and all the bullshit that they get because IDF fucked up and hit some kid, or somebody threw a rock at them and they fucking responded in a crazy way. They don't have to do any of that shit, right? And that it demilitarizes the region and then puts forward peace plans and negotiations. This seems like
there was
much
another
better
deal. If I again that's
Mhm.
what I'm saying, I have to find the text of the deals for you. But there were other deals where Hamas, like in this deal, Israel has to leave completely, right? Well, almost completely, right? There's like a slight buffer zone. If you look at the map that they provide at the bottom.
Yeah, but I mean
Like
they've been fine with leaving for a long time in Gaza.
Yeah,
and they
there
pulled out
was another
before. Like
deal.
they,
If I remember, hold on. I understand. There was another deal where Hamas didn't agree, said hey, we will allow an Israeli presence in Gaza. But again, I'm looking for this, looking for the stuff.
yeah, I mean, if you can find a deal that Israel rejected that said that they would have control over all of Gaza, or that they would have a presence, maybe that would be a good argument. But I still would say that this deal that says Hamas is no longer a political entity in the region, and that it would be demilitarized, and that they would use gun buyback programs to get rid of weapons and tunnels, is very clearly a better deal than just having the IDF there, which is already a problem for Hamas and Israel. I just don't see a better deal.
Again, like I said, I have to find the text of the deals.
Hear me, maybe I'm wrong on this, right? Because I don't know the mind of Israeli politicians, right? But Israel has been out of Gaza for a decade before October 7th, right? They pull out. They like it's a dead area to them that they don't. That it feels like to me what they want is they want them to go their own way. Like they don't want anything to fucking do with Gaza, because Gaza is always a problem for them one way or another. And that they're not trying to establish settlements there, separating West Bank, right? Separating, Golan Heights and things like that, right? Just talking about specifically Gaza, that they don't want to fucking be there. They want that, but they see it as a constant threat and a problem, because there are attacks that are launched from there, because they're always getting bad PR when they fuck up, when there's some parade or some protest at the border, and then they have snipers there, and then they're worried that one errant shot is going to be another fucking international disaster for them. They want out, right? And this allows them to get out and ensure that there isn't either a political or a military threat from that region there, and that they're not the major party player that's in charge of that, so they don't get blamed on that. This seems like a sweetheart deal, better than anything that has been offered in the past, specifically pertaining to Gaza. Maybe you could make a better argument about two-state solutions in the 60s or something that fell through. You know what I mean? But when we're talking about this region, I don't accept the argument that you're having unless you can provide evidence. And I know you're looking for it, right?
Yeah.
That there were multiple better deals offered to them. To me, just does not ring true with everything that I know. But again, I'm not an expert on Israel-Palestine. I'm not like most of these grifter streamers that the moment something became big news, all of a sudden, I've actually known about this a long time, and I've totally read a ton of books about this, because they're fucking Wikipedia warriors. But nevertheless, I'm not buying that.
So I'm just skimming through it again. Who's going to control the water, the electricity, the so on and so forth? Does it say anything about that going forward? Because that's a big issue in terms of if we're talking about like relinquishing control.
There was
and
something.
I think that would
Yeah,
be
governance,
like
the governance committee.
the governance committee, and also the
wait,
idea that
governance
Tony
committee, wait, real quick.
is
Governance committee will do what? I'm
Control-
looking.
control-
govern the area.
there's a technocratic committee in one of the points, right?
It's
of-
point 9.
yeah.
Okay.
So
This
yeah,
committee will be
technocratic-
made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new transitional body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by Trump, with other members and heads of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. This body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until such time as the Palestinian Authority has completed its reform program as outlined in various proposals, including President Trump's peace plan in 2020 and the Saudi French proposal, and can securely and effectively take back control of Gaza. This body will call on best international standards to create modern and efficient governance that serves the people of Gaza and is conducive to attracting investment.
And very specifically, at the beginning, it states that this committee will be responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for the people of Gaza.
Yeah, but like the issue is there's no. Well, I guess the idea would be they're building infrastructure for like electricity and water.
Yeah.
Right. That would be.
Yeah,
I
that's
just don't
what,
see that anywhere. But yeah,
public services. What else
Okay.
could that mean, right?
roads.
Right. Yeah, roads,
uh,
water, electricity, stuff like this.
Yeah, fair.
Right. And it also says for point 8, which is especially if you're talking about like food and water, right? Entry of distribution and aid in the Gaza Strip will proceed without interference from the two parties through the United Nations and its agencies and the Red Crescent, in addition to other international institutions not associated in any matter with either party. Opening the Rafah crossing in both directions will be subject to the same mechanism implemented in January 19, 2025 agreement, right? So it also ensures that the UN, that a bunch of NGOs that are going to make money off of this, let's be honest, will be able to bring aid into the region. So even if there is like an infrastructure issue of bringing in water, right? Like it is neither the Israelis or the Palestinians will be able to control relief aid organizations and their ability to come in and bring in food, water,
Right.
clothing, etc.
Also, Ali, to very directly answers your question. Sorry, I don't know why I missed this. Number
Yeah.
7, upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will be immediately sent. At a minimum, aid quantities will be consistent with what was included in January 19,
Oh, here it is,
2025 agreement regarding humanitarian aid, including rehabilitation of infrastructure, parentheses, water, electricity, sewage, rehabilitation of hospitals and bakeries, and entry of necessary equipment to remove rubble and open roads. So that's all of it right there.
No, well, yeah, fair. I'm just saying because I think the issue like was like Israel was able to cut off their water and electricity, right? Implying that they didn't even have the infrastructure to rebuild for it. But like the rehabilitation of it is right there. That's fair. It
I
addresses it.
mean, that might not disappear. So, from what that sounds like to me, and I could be incorrect, right? What that sounds like to me is that we will rebuild the infrastructure the way it was before, and in that sense, yeah, Israel still had the possibility, like Israel has central control of all of that, of all the utilities, right? And there's a provision there that I'm aware of that says that this will be any different.
Well, that's
Well,
number
rehab,
9.
rehab and
Number
rebuild
9
are
is saying
different.
that Israel is like there's the governance of a technocratic apolitical Palestinian committee, yada yada, until Palestinian Authority is able to take over, right? So if the governance and municipality and the infrastructure and all of those things are like you're saying that what we're going to do is that the plan, where are you getting the idea that the plan would allow them to only rebuild water and things at that facility that are dependent upon Israel?
I'm saying they're already like that was already the case previously.
Mhm.
That
Right,
it
that
all
was the case
depend-
previously, yes.
Yeah, and so what? Sorry, what Ali seemed to be asking is, and maybe I'm incorrect, right? Is that hey, where does it say that they'll have independent control of these things, right?
So I
Of
think
these utilities.
I think
right?
the
And
oh,
I'm saying that my reading of number 9 seems to be that they'll have a committee to help with managing these utilities, right? But there's nothing here to say that they will have those utilities will be completely separate, right, and not at all tied to Israel, and so that Israel will not have the ability
so
to-
quote,
rehabilitation.
this body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza. End quote.
Also,
Okay.
also, I think,
right.
I
So
think
it's like, so I mean, if they have the control of the funding and control of the programs of the redevelopment, then I think, I mean, politicians are corrupt, right? And the body is going to have fucking Tony Blair and Trump on it, right?
Tony
so
Blair,
I mean,
yeah.
as well as other international leaders, as well as Palestinian leaders, etc. But so I mean, that comes down to an argument of whether or not you trust that this committee will truly be apolitical or that will truly have Gazans' interests best in mind. I mean,
Well,
I would disagree with that, but I would disagree that any governmental institution would.
Well,
right? You know what I mean?
hold on. So, the idea of a democratic, apolitical Palestinian community. I mean, that is a thing that can be formed, right? You can make that.
I disagree, but that's fine.
Sure.
I think they always have political bias, and they always have, and this whole apolitical thing is nonsense when you're doing politics.
But look, hold on, but take it at its face, right? Look at the wording. This committee will be made up of a qualified Palestinians and international experts, right? The qualified Palestinians are the apolitical body, right? With oversight and supervision by a new international transition body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed by Trump and possibly Tony Blair, right? So you'll have a board, an apolitical board, with oversight by a very much political body. So, what is that? What is the relationship there? Is this board actually just making a decision? Is this oversight board can they just override these things? Right? What does that actually look like? And yeah. So I would not assume that with just what we've learned so far, that Israel's allies, not Israel itself, but its allies, wouldn't have an outsized amount of control on this board.
Someone says you gotta stop saying Tony Blair. I'm eating.
Oh, fair enough. But you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously have a deep distrust for politicians, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But I'm trying to set my ANCAP skepticism to the side for a moment and just looking at its ability towards relative success. And relative success means, to me, the region is demilitarized, is something that I would very much like, but I don't like the idea of individual weapons being taken, right? But I'll set that serious gripe I have aside.
I mean, I have the same gripe.
Right. I'm trying to deal with the details, right?
Sure,
Instead of just being like, oh, it has this one problem and therefore I'm against it. It's not really fine, but then the conversation doesn't continue, right? So setting some of those gripes apart, my definition of relative success would be that Israel stops bombing, Hamas is no longer in power, that there is another entity that is policing and giving protection to Gaza, that Gazans have some level of control over, that is internal, and that the PLO, which is, as far as I'm concerned, just a commie organization that I hate anyways, right? But the PLO, Palestinian Authority, whatever, is able to gain that control over that region. I think that moves us much, much, much closer to at least a presumed two-state solution than where we currently are, and it stops the killing of fucking babies.
Yeah.
And that's a win to me.
Yeah.
As much as there are a lot of things I have issue with it, that would be a fucking win.
I'm coming from a place of I need some type of resolution, right? I can't keep going as far as going. There's some promises here that seem, once again, if I take it at face value, whether or not I think it's actually going to happen, no, but I want to take it at face value. I want this to happen. The fact that there's like some type of recognition of a Palestinian state, right? They at least recognize that that's what the aims and the goals are. The return of the hostages in the
Right
in
to
the
return
prisons.
is a huge one too.
No,
Right
no,
to return is a huge dub.
the release of the hostages from Israel, number 5.
1700, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's uh, once again, at face value, this goes through. Brother, I don't think you're getting a peace prize. You're getting a Trump third term. The Arabs and if this happens, right, and then you have 3 years and 3 years of peace.
He won the vote in Dearborn,
Once
Michigan,
again.
boys.
Yeah, like I'll tell you that much, man. Listen, all people want is some type of solution to this problem. They want a Palestinian state. They want a Palestinian country. They want recognition of Palestinians, right? And if once again, the verbiage on this, they kind of nailed it. Talking about Gaza, but still referring to them as Palestinians. Whoever wrote this, like, I don't think it was Trump, right? Whoever wrote this, fucking kudos to them. I will give them a lot of credit for how they wrote it. Now,
Just for the record,
The term
5 doesn't call them Israeli hostages, right? It says once all
prisoners,
hostages are released, Israel released 250 life sentence prisoners plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7, 2023.
Fair.
It's very careful with the language here to
That's
not support the Palestinian narrative, which
Mhm.
the Palestinian narrative that these are Israeli political prisoners or hostages, and also not to necessarily support Israelis' claim that these are murderers and terrorists who
Yeah.
have been convicted with terrorism, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say it one way or the other, which I think is probably a boon to the way that it was written.
Mhm.
When I read it that way, it almost makes me think that maybe this is a genuine attempt, right? Because they very easily could have said the terrorists that Israel is holding or something, right? Like they very easily could have said something that would have pissed off Hamas just
Mhm.
because of the language. And the language is very careful here to just say 250 life sentence prisoners, 1,700 Gazans detained, right? Like it's very descriptive without any moral claims on why those prisoners are being held by
Yeah.
Israel. And that to me kind of like the more I'm looking at the language, it feels like a genuine attempt at a plan and not something that's just thrown together for propaganda purposes.
And the terminology for like their infrastructure being rehabilitated rather than rebuilt, I do. I mean, maybe I'm giving too much to it, but rehabilitation does seem like they're going to put more effort into giving them their own like autonomy when it comes to like maybe
Well,
they
it
are
also
going to
says
have
the
water
goal is to
treatment.
attract investors, right?
Mhm.
And so if the Board of Peace is doing what neoliberals do best, which is make big corporations really, really rich by funneling tax money into building shit, one way it's not the most efficient use of capital as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, I would consider it immoral, but it does point more towards, hedge funds and investment firms building infrastructure that is designed to make a profit and is designed to be stable in a more long-term situation so that they can make money off of that, right? Because investors are not interested in something that is so unstable that they can't get a return on their investment. They're only interested if there's enough maintenance of at least stability, economic stability. I won't say peace, right? Because I wouldn't consider anyone under the occupation of governance purely at peace, but at the very least, economic stability would be a goal because that's the only way they're getting a return on investment.
Scott, I appreciate you taking off your ANCAP hat for this discussion. I'll give you your flowers now.
Yeah, right.
There we go. World peace.
There we go. Yeah,
world
Donald
peace.
Trump getting the peace prize, boys.
Whatever happened to Greenland, by the way? Just real quick while Prime's loading.
We haven't forgot.
Oh, okay.
We haven't forgot. That's coming.
You think never forget is about 9/11? It's about Greenland, boys.
We're coming. We're still coming for Greenland.
We need a naval base there for some reason.
And there's a lot of
Bigger
minerals, a lot of lithium. No?
Lithium would be nice. Lithium would be nice to get away from China and the slave labor that they use, since your iPhones that you tweet
You
out
probably
your
still need to process it in
anti-capitalist
China.
messages from are usually made from, men and women that are being beaten and raped and tortured under the control of Chinese firms. But it'd be nice.
You have ethically sourced headphones and microphones over there, eh?
Fuck no. But I did make sure that my cell phone is a Motorola, because I looked into where they source their cobalt from, because it's from Colorado, and that's why I specifically bought this phone as opposed to other phones, because I was able to get better ethically sourced for my cell phone. But yeah, my microphone and other things like that, like there's only so many fucking options on the market for those products. I would like to get a Fairphone, but I just don't have the money to buy the newest Fairphone and then have it shipped.
You want to get the Trump
then
phone?
pay-
Where's that? I'm sure that's in the pipeline.
Oh,
No,
that's
fuck the
right.
Trump phone.
I heard about
No,
that.
Fairphone. I appreciate the company Fairphone. The problem is that they're not based in the U.S. yet, so you have to get T-Mobile.
fair.
But the biggest thing, it's a European company, but their T-Mobile is the only service provider that'll where you can get 4G through those, the way the cell phone is made. But the biggest problem is getting the fucking batteries, because every one of the fucking country has laws on shipping a cell phone with a battery in it. And they're like, oh, the lithium could so basically the only way to get a Fairphone actually is to either fly there yourself and then bring that on with a carry-on, or to know somebody that's willing to break a few laws to get the phone over to you. So I went with a Motorola because it was cheaper and easier.
Fair.
So I have the text of, well, not the text, but detailed reporting. One of the deals that was rejected. And I'm trying to look over another one. But I'll have to do that in a second. But with this plan, oh shit. Sorry, one second. I just respond to
Yeah.
this.
Well, at
Yes,
least
please, come on.
for me, Scott, any plan that initially came out where they would have received all or most of their hostages, initially without the torment and the torture that ensued potentially,
Oh, shit.
I think would have been a better plan to accept.
Oh.
Right, to get back the hostages immediately would have been the best and the best approach. Right, it would strip away. Well,
this plan
Sorry.
this plan says after the hostages are released, right? So Israel is not giving up those hostages until,
Sorry.
or those prisoners,
No.
detainees, until.
I'm saying
until
for me,
Hamas
a better plan for the Israelis to have accepted would have been any plan that got their hostages back at a closer date and time, all of them. So there was a couple on there that got their hostages back. I think that is, if that's important, right? That would be the best plan. And they could have continued to do it. They could have continued to.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Or whatever
There's
the fuck
so much.
they wanted.
There's so much in this plan that's a sweetheart deal for Israel. In terms of what I think it's a better plan. Not necessarily better in the sense of
I'm the bridge here.
pragmatically.
Okay.
I just mean for what Israel desires.
I want to hear the other Israel hater that just joined us, Doobie, who hates Israel
sorry.
for no reason.
Sorry, Doobie, I didn't see your message
This is a peace process.
until just
come at
now.
this with some diplomacy.
It's okay.
All right, Lactoid.
I want to hear what Doobie has to say about Trump's brilliant plan. Go ahead.
Don't call it Trump's plan.
It is Trump's plan.
No.
Oh, wait, before you do that, hold on. I do have some super chats. So let me get those out of the way, and then we'll continue. So thank you. They came in not too long ago.
Nice.
I'm watching the YouTube. I know the time.
Oh,
Watch
you
your
could have
own
said something.
chat. Why
You
you
could have said
dick
something
watching?
then.
You fucking dick watching, Corey? Get out of here.
Me? What? I'm also giving him a view. Yeah.
You're meat watching.
I appreciate the view.
I'm also here on the panel.
My brave browser does not like YouTube. If I open a YouTube browser while trying to stream,
How
it is
dare
not
I
a fan.
have the tab open of a panel that I'm on?
I mean, God. Sorry, Alexander Wynn. Sorry, you were giving it some super chats. I didn't see them until just this second, so I do apologize. It says Alexander Wynn, right of return to Gaza, not Israel. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Andrew, sorry, Alexander. I apologize. That's a response to what I was saying. Yeah, establishing a right of return. That wasn't when I was talking about this particular plan, right? But that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm skeptical of it all, right? Even the idea of right to return, the Israelis have been very clear that that's a no go, right? So establishing it even in like in an adjacent manner makes me more skeptical.
I
And
I
they've
think it's the
been
exact opposite. I think right of return to Gaza is a narrative win for the pro-Palestinian side, right? Because like as it stands right now, one of the big presumed gripes of like Egypt not allowing refugees across the border is this concept of like, oh well, they'll have no right of return, and this gets Egypt on board, presumably because it defangs Egypt's excuse to not allowing people over the Gazan border, right? And allows Gazans to flee to Egypt if that's what they so choose. And and if Egypt gets brought in on the ISF, right, and there's this right to
Mhm.
return, the very concept of right of return is a philosophical win that like obviously it's not ANCAP me. This is you know putting on my like pro Palestine flag, version of
Yeah, we
me or
got you. We
whatever,
got you.
right? Internal critique. That is a philosophical win that the pro Palestinian movement needs to say, well, you recognize the right of return in Gaza. Why are you like you recognize that people have been pushed out
Hold
of their
on.
homes and they have a
No,
right to
no.
return to their homes? This is a human right.
But then, hold on,
Like it's
then
a
you agreed
step
with
in
what
that
I just
direction.
said. Wait a minute, hold on. Then you agreed with what I just said, right? What I said
Well,
previously is that the reason why I'm skeptical of the plan is because this would be against Israel's interests, right? And then what you replied with, no, the reason why I think this is
okay.
what,
If
yeah,
I mean, like, if you're skeptical of the plan from a pragmatic perspective because you think that's a bridge too far, sure. I was under the impression that you were saying that you were skeptical of the plan because it doesn't go far enough in
no,
instantiating right of return, and that the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews is continuing here.
no, I'm skeptical because of the things that you said, right? Like
Okay.
because
I
it
mean, yeah,
established,
maybe
yeah,
from a
sure.
yeah, I mean, maybe from a pragmatic perspective, that makes it harder to get the deal. But I think it might be the compromise that Israel is willing to accept because Israel's not going farther than right of return to Gaza on this deal. We know they're not doing right of return in the
Yeah.
Golan Heights or fucking or Israel proper from the Nakba. Like that's not fucking happening. But maybe you can get it for Gaza, which brings Egypt in, and then the fight for people with deeds to homes that they were removed from in the
Mhm.
60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, right? Is an easier fight moving
Yep.
forward.
So yeah, so why I'm skeptical. But Alexander with another $5 says Prime, if so many Islamic countries are already with Israel, it sounds like Gaza has nothing to even negotiate with. They lost wholly and completely. Well, that's why the attack of October 7th attacks happened in the first place, right?
Mhm.
There were the Abraham Accords that one after another these Middle Eastern countries were signing on to, right? And the Abraham Accord specifically sidesteps the question of the Palestine question completely. And they were watching as like their nominal allies were abandoning them. And so the October 7th attacks were in response to that. So like that was understanding that they were losing. That's
Right.
why the October 7th attacks happened. So I mean, yeah, I agree. The Palestinians are in a horrible position. Yeah. So other Alexander with another $5. Almost every single plan Israel ever declined was a single state plan or had infinite right to return of Israel. You're completely wrong about that. I like a little how the text of the plan here. That's like anyway, the plans that I was talking about weren't even about like the entire Israeli conflict. They were specifically talking about the Gaza plan the Gaza conflict that's happening now. So like those wouldn't even talk about a single state plan, like period. That's not even in the discussion. But yeah,
I think he
Israel's
may just be confusing the plans dealing with post October 7th with all of the like the KC
yeah, that's
Accords
what I'm
and
saying.
other
Yeah,
things like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was just like
Yeah.
further clarifying.
Fair. Okay. And finally, from Alexander Wynn, another $5 says, question: if this goes well,
Dude,
will
how do I
Trump
turn
build-
Alexander Wynn into a fucking libertarian? Because this dude is a fucking pay pig. Like fucking, how do I make him libertarian and get him over here?
You are a beautiful person, Alexander Wynn. When you agree or disagree with me, that's all you should do with money. But I appreciate you. Alexander Wynn says, question: if this goes well, will Trump build a Mar-a-Lago resort made out of gold in Gaza? I think that's absolutely part of any plan that he'd be involved in. So you
The
know,
chat told me to mail him Tylenol.
sorry, you can go ahead. Doobie, I interrupted you, and I apologize.
So I'm sorry. What was the question? Like, what do I think about the plan?
Mhm.
Blacktoad was calling you out, I believe.
The tweet.
Oh, call me I do hate Israel. To be clear, I despise Israel in every
Yep,
way.
of course.
But
Same here.
so I think the plan would be good. I agree with Prem. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm reminded of the 2020 plan that Trump came out with. That he, was terrible for the Palestinians. To be clear, right? If you look at the map that they came up with for this this corridor from Gaza to the West Bank, right? It looked like fucking Swiss cheese. It was set up so that it would guarantee there would never be an actual Palestinian state established. But even that plan, Netanyahu and the Israelis sabotaged, right? And Trump said this himself after he left office. He said that that Netanyahu to have them along, never wanted peace, never wanted the plan to go through, and this guy's been doing the same shit for decades, right? So I think what's happening right now, and I think it's a good thing, to be clear. I think this whole thing is a good thing, actually, because what it signals is that Israel is really feeling the pressure of the international turn against Israel, right? Not just like in Europe, but in the United States too. I think they really, really, really care about what the U.S. public thinks about Israel, right? That's why they put so much money into propaganda here and into influencing our politicians. I think it's extremely important to them that the U.S. public remains pro-Israel, right? And recent polls have shown that is no longer the case, right? For I think most of the country, if I remember correctly, but at vast majority of the Democrat Party, I think the majority of independents, etc. So, I think it signals that they're feeling the pressure, which is good. I think the pressure will increase. I agree with Prime that this is probably not going to go through, but even if there's an attempt to make this happen, at least people stop dying for a while. At least the bombing slows down. At least people get some food. I think that's good. So, and if it falls apart, I imagine if they're able to get international boots on the ground there, maybe what happens afterwards will be less brutal than what was happening before. Who knows? But,
yeah, I mean, if we can get the ISF, right, that drastically changes things.
Yeah,
because Israel is no longer involved in an internal conflict. Israel is now in a conflict with Egypt, with Jordan, with whomever is on the peace board of peace, with whatever troops or whatever international force is kind of there, right? And I think we can see this from the flip side of Israel's own history with the 6-Day War, right? Is, so long as UN peacekeeping forces were, maintaining, the Suez Canal, and making sure that Israel was able to get, resources and trade through the Suez Canal, there wasn't really a legitimate threat of war. And the moment that UN peacekeeping troops leave, war breaks out, right? And so, I mean, like whether or not you agree, whether or not you disagree, whether or not you think the narrative of who the bad guy is, set all that shit aside, right? When you have international peacekeeping troops or a coalition of multiple countries in a region, nations are far more recalcitrant to bomb. They just are, because there's a lot more unknown variables and risk that come with starting conflict in that. So, I mean, if we could actually get this ISF, this international, or IFS, whatever it was, ISF. Yeah, if we could actually get just that would drastically change the situation in Gaza.
The International
Yeah, I agree.
Stabilization Force.
I think if they could just get that, and that came with like international reporters coming to the area and actually,
Yeah, you're gonna get
keeping
war
an eye on shit.
reporters if you get that. I
Yeah,
think.
like I think that would make it much harder for them to do what they have been doing, which again is good, you know. And I think
Well, I
think
also
it-
think
go
from
ahead.
the flip side for Israel, right? You know, there's a lot of pro-Palestinian propaganda. You know, the whole Hollywood situation. And when you have multiple war reporters from international organizations that are stationed with international troops, being able to say, "Oh, that's just Hollywood," is like something Israel can't do anymore,
yeah,
right? Like it would. I think there is propaganda, a lot of propaganda from pro-Palestinian narratives and voices. And like, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like you can just open Twitter and if you scroll long enough, you're going to find some video of like Israel killed this baby. And then like, you can just image search it and be like, this is from Croatia in 2012. What the fuck are you talking about? Right. Like, and like, you know, is that Chinese bots and Russian bots or, you know, where is that coming from? Who fucking knows? But if you have a stable, you know, this ISF, this stabilization force with reward reporters there, it means that the information that comes out of there can't just be dismissed on its face because of propaganda, which is good for the Gazans, as well as it's also good for the Israelis because they're, you know, the media war landscape against propaganda with their own propaganda would get calmed down a lot, right? So I just think in both directions, you're going to get a lot less lies and propaganda because you're going to have more access towards reputable journalists and reporting and truth in the region.
yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, like I said, overall, I think it's a good thing. Even if nothing comes from it, it's a good signal that I think they're feeling the pressure. I think Trump is feeling pressure. So I think overall a good thing. I hope it works out.
Where's Gibbs screaming about
so-
strip malls?
Uh,
Where's Gibbs saying he's going to own stock in Panera Bread once they start making Palestinian dishes? You know what I mean? Like, this is what I need.
If anything, he wants to
um,
invade both of them. He's manifest.
I fucking like I like pita bread. Come on.
So Scott, I think that you're like I don't think you're like a pro-Israel guy. I think you're like more centered, at least than I am, right on this issue.
I'm remarkably centered on this issue.
Yeah.
On Israel Palestine. I hate them both.
So do you think that so what I'm asking is sort of related to the conflict over there, but I'm really curious about what you think about what's happening here in the United States, where like the Israeli influence
The
on the
propaganda
United
machine.
States. Yeah, well, I don't know if I haven't looked into this yet, but I mean I've heard that the people who bought up TikTok are like fucking like Israeli billionaires. So like, but that's so. The question was, do you think that trend is going to continue within the U.S. like this noticing quote unquote trend, where people
Right.
are starting to wake up to how much influence Israel has in the U.S. and starting to push against it?
I think what I tend to see, right? And again, I'm not an expert on fucking anything other than ANCAP philosophy, right? But what I tend to see is a lot of people use Jews and Israel as a low resolution model for a much more complicated information propaganda, political influence buying machine of the cathedral. And so I agree, I do think that the quote unquote noticing will continue. But I think what ends up happening is that you have a lot of right wingers, left wingers, doesn't matter, disaffected Americans where they're, you know, to borrow from like a Marxian analysis, where their material conditions are fucked because the entire economy and the, you know, the entire deal with Israel and Saudi Arabia to tie the dollar to petroleum and everything has fucked our economy to such a degree that you have young people especially that realize they're never going to buy a home, that inflation is being lied about constantly, and that the government is just bullshitting them on how bad inflation and how bad the market economy is for young people. And they're looking for an answer. They're looking for something to be mad about. And that I do think that Jews get an unfair amount of that attention, but I also don't think that they're blameless. I don't think Israel's working with the CIA, the Israeli intelligence Five Eyes program, the CIA. A lot of people are certainly involved in the donor class and working with NGOs and the deep state, if you will, and media organizations, and then it's really like a hodgepodge of a lot of different interests working together to
Yeah.
ensure that the governments make sure the rich people stay rich and that this broken economic system continues. And I do think that there's an unfair amount of it being seen as like an Israel or a Jewish thing, because that's the low resolution, simple view.
I don't think. I mean, there are absolutely people who see it as a Jewish thing, right? Like we have Nick Fuentes and his Groypers and all these,
And a lot more than
prototypical
there
things.
used to be 5 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. But I think what that typically is, it's these are the same kind of people who are just like bigots in general. I think that these people already kind of are wired in that way, right? So if they see, oh well, Israel is a Jewish state, so therefore the Jews did it, right? And that's kind of how they think.
I disagree.
But then what do you think it is then? Because I mean, I don't think that there's like
I think what you had.
Go ahead.
I think what you had is you had a control of speech and a nanny state culture that compounded to such a degree, especially when it comes to COVID, but even still before that, of silencing people that said the naughty words and said the naughty narratives and said the bigotry or things like that. And then what ended up happening was a culture where trying to discuss descriptive reality became verboten, right? Like talking about black crime statistics, for example, is a thing that Charlie Kirk did a lot of. And so much on the left are like, oh, he's a horrible bigot because of this. And it's like, Charlie Kirk is the most tepid, non-racist, or was the most tepid, non-racist conservative figure in America. Like he is so, like he's actively anti-racist multiple times, right? Like, I mean, he screamed at white nationalists and called them pieces of shit because that we needed a colorblind society and that their racism had no part in the conservative movement, and that, you know, the Groypers and that people that believe in race realism needed to be kicked out of the conservative movement. But it didn't matter, because just talking about race crime statistics or talking about, you know, his basic conservative beliefs became a verboten thing where many people were kicked off of the internet. Many people were banned from Twitter, banned from YouTube, banned because they said the naughty things. And there is a growing group of young men, especially young white men, especially, that see all of the problems, see a lot of problems, don't understand them. And then when they try and talk about certain things, they're pushed out of the conversation completely. You're a bigot, you're a racist. And the only people that are willing to discuss those things are people like Nick Fuentes, are people like going to BitChute to find some Red Ice TV fucking video or something. You have to go search for this truth, and quote, and I mean truth in the biggest air quotes possible. But there's these groups of people that are willing to engage in conversation and are debanked and punished and kicked off of social media for it. And so what ends up becoming what ends up happening is a lot of these people that I don't think are particularly wired to be racist or are already racist, they begin to associate people that are open racists with the only people that speak the truth. Because
you're right.
They're the only people that are allowed, that are willing to say certain truths. And a lot of normies and a lot of like people that want to keep their YouTube channel, they don't, I don't touch the JQ. I don't want to lose my YouTube channel. And it's like, so then they go find these people, and then they find these people in these insular communities where there isn't any pushback because they're on fucking BitChute or they're on fucking, what's the other one?
On Discord.
They're on Parler, or they're on some Discord server,
yeah.
or they're in some isolated insular community where they don't have pushback because they've already been pushed out of the main areas of conversation. And I think if we can't get a return to genuine free speech, and we can't get the left to begin to debate again and to begin to say there's a difference between Nick Fuentes Nazis and your typical conservative talking about DEI programs, you're going to see more and more young men that I don't think were necessarily wired for racism go to racism because they go, oh, racists are the only ones that tell the fucking truth. Racists are the only ones that have these conversations.
Maybe I'm just like so I like 99% agree with you because I've seen this happen, right? Like I've talked to a lot of these young guys who, you know, when Discord started banning Holocaust denial, like, and they did this around what 2016 after Charlottesville, if I remember correctly.
Right, yeah.
Like, because before that we'd have those debates all the time, right? And you go into the server
and you
my server,
nuke a whole server, which was so much worse than like banning a person.
They deleted hundreds of servers, right? Like overnight, thousands of people, right? So
yeah,
well, what ended up happening is you had a lot of people who saw that as like, oh well, if I can't even talk about this thing, there must be some kind of truth here, right? And they want to go to figure out what that truth is. Right, so you're 100% right. I just think that people who have that kind of like are able to generalize entire groups like this, right? I think that they are wired in that way, or maybe I'm just like
I agree. I would never. Maybe they're wired that way, but why are they wired that way? What it's like that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen. Like, you're not born biologically like that. It happens when you're a white kid in a fucking school and your teacher is fucking browbeating you for being white and is constantly telling you that you have to be guilty for all of these things. And then you develop this sense of like, I have to choose in these environments. You know, it's not all schools, not all teachers, obviously, but you get pushed in this position where it's like, okay, either I love myself and that makes me a racist, or I hate myself and I'm an anti-racist.
Yeah.
I think obviously it's a false dichotomy.
Telling them that they can be proud to be white, that they should be proud to be
white. Right.
Right.
I mean, I think the greatest piece of propaganda that was ever created for white racists in America in the last 10 years was when 4chan started putting up signs that said it's okay to be white. And journalists and major media publications and CNN and NBC and Washington Post and New York Times start putting out articles that this is vile racism. The phrase, it's okay to be white. I think a lot of young men went, so it's not okay to be white. Being white in and of myself is a problem to these people. Well, then fuck you.
Okay. So before we continue on this direction, which is fine if that's where you guys want to go.
Well, it ties into Jew hatred, right? Like in Israel.
Okay, fair enough. I wanted to like address the thing that my friend Scott asked, right? Because Prime doesn't ever avoid the smoke. He goes right towards it. But so you asked me about the peace deals from before, and
you said that there was multiple peace deals that they rejected that were better than this current plan.
Sure. It depends on what you. Of course, this is going to be subjective. What you think is better or not, right? Fair. But like the problem was, it just took me forever to find the actual plans. Because usually there's like articles saying, "Hey, a peace deal was found." It was accepted or rejected or whatever the fuck, right? But like they don't actually reference or even link to the article. So it took me a while to dig those up. So I found two different deals. One of these, and I can provide you the links. One of these was during the Biden administration, May 6, 2024. It's a full text of the ceasefire agreement that Hamas has accepted. So that's the title of it. And it goes through a very detailed plan. So I guess this is the one. I mean, it must have been the one negotiated by Blinken. It's, I mean, I don't know. It's like what we've heard many times before, right? It talks about a staged release of hostages, right? As a first stage of 42 days. And it's this is mostly talking about hostages going back and forth. And then this is this is all detainees for the first stage. Second stage, announcing return sustainable calm, cessation of military and hostile operations.
This plan has that, right? Actually, it's better. This plan's better, which goes against your point one, right? Because this plan has Hamas giving up hostages first.
Let me finish. Let me finish. And you understand like where I'm going with all this, right?
Uh-huh.
So the second stage, sustainable calm, cessation, military and hostile operations. Third stage, exchanging the bodies and remains of the dead. Beginning the invitation of Gaza Strip reconstruction for a period of 3 to 5 years. Ending the complete siege of the Gaza Strip. So this is a full and well, not full, a quite detailed plan, right?
Right. We'd have to
Here.
go line by line, but so far,
Sure, sure.
this plan that Trump put forward definitely sounds better for Israel.
One second. I will tell you why I think the way I do. So that's the blink plan. It's a long plan. Again, I'll link to it in a second. And there's another plan, which is the Witkoff plan, the Witkoff framework revealed, which is very light. And I'll just read the 6 points because it'll be quite quick. So
Can you put it on screen for us or something, maybe?
let me just link it to you. You could
Okay.
take a
Or
look.
yeah, I
It'll
just
be
want to
easy.
follow along.
No problem. I'm gonna link them both to you. 1 second.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me. This first deal, this first link, that is the Blinken plan, or at least I'm pretty sure it's negotiated by Blinken. I'm not positive on that one, but it's negotiated by someone during the Biden administration. And the second one, here, this is the Witkoff plan. Okay. All right. So I'll read. I'm reading from the second one right now. 160-day ceasefire will go into effect with U.S. President Donald Trump guaranteeing that Israel will adhere to it. 10 living hostages and 18 coffins containing murdered hostages out of the list of 58 remaining hostages in total are to be released in 2 phases, half on the first day, half on the 7th. Each phase will include 5 living hostages and 9 deceased. The humanitarian aid will immediately be allowed into the Gaza Strip. Distribution will be handled through agreed upon channels, including the United Nations and the Red Crescent. For Israeli military operations will cease. This includes a daily 10-hour pause in air activity and 12-hour pause on days when hostages are released. 5. On the first day following the initial hostage release, IDF will reposition in the northern Gaza Strip at the Netzarim corridor on the 7th day. Following the second release, Israeli forces will redeploy to the southern Gaza Strip. 6. On the first day, negotiations under the auspices of mediators will begin toward a permanent ceasefire agreement. Discussions will address conditions for releasing the remaining hostages in exchange for an unspecified number of imprisoned terrorists, as well as issues related to further IDF redeployments, withdrawals. The talks will also cover long-term arrangements for the Gaza Strip plans for post-war governance and official declaration of permanent ceasefire. So that's the entire Witkoff framework.
Yeah.
Just
So
here.
obviously, neither of those plans are better than the Trump plan for Israel.
Okay. So once again, let me finish my words, and then you'll understand what I'm trying to say. So I think these plans are better for Israel, right? The Witkoff framework more so than the U.S. The previous Biden framework, whatever that was called. Specifically talking about for both, neither of them have any sort of international coalition that Israel has to deal with. Israel doesn't have to negotiate with anyone else, right? Like Israel, being from the position of power, right, only has to return hostages and then let in some aid. Well, maybe the we'll call it framework is a little light on that one, but like let in some aid and negotiate for further military with demilitarization, right? Like it leaves the path open for like what will allow what will be the conditions for like full withdrawal. In these frameworks, like Israel is firmly within the driver's seat. It doesn't have to deal with literally anyone else other than the U.S., which is behind it the entire entire way. For the Witkoff framework, the Netanyahu was pushing for exactly this staged release of hostages until they weren't. So I'll read from this article, right? I'm going to read just a few paragraphs.
Just a
and
few
they're talk-
paragraphs.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. This is from the Times of Israel, and titled "After U.S. Cools on Phase Gaza Deal, Senior Qatari Officials Laments Moving Goalposts." All right. Arab mediators thought they had finally reached a breakthrough on August 18th when they coaxed Hamas to accept a proposal for a phased ceasefire and hostage release deal that was nearly identical to the one sponsored by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and approved by Israel a month earlier. So what they're talking about is a deal that is nearly identical to the second deal I talked about, the Witkoff framework that I just read. It was about 3 weeks after talks had blown up in Doha. However, Israel and the United States recalled their negotiating teams over new conditions added by Hamas that Jerusalem and Washington refused to accept. During that period, Israel declared it was no longer interested in the phased framework that had been discussed, one that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu began pushing some 16 months earlier in order to try and secure the release of at least some of the hostages without committing up front to a permanent end to the war. But Arab mediators in Egypt and Qatar stuck to the existing script. A 2-month truce during which roughly half of the remaining hostages would be freed while Israel and Hamas would hold talks on permanent ceasefire and the release of the remaining captives at the conclusion of the 60 days. Cairo and Doha deemed the gaps that existed after the Hamas July 24 proposal small enough to fill compared to the vast void that would exist between the sides if talks were to be held on a one-phase deal to end the war. The mediators kept Witkoff appraised of their efforts, assuming he would back them if they succeeded. But when the breakthrough came, meaning Hamas agreeing to the deal that they had previously rejected, the U.S. envoy remained mum for nearly 2 weeks before telling Fox News that the quote-unquote official position is against a multi-stage hostage release deals, meaning the thing that he had proposed himself. This is Steve Witkoff. In a Monday interview with the Times of Israel from Doha, Anasari, spokesperson for the Qatar's lead negotiator, Prime Minister Mohammed bin something Al Thani, avoided explicitly criticizing Washington's conduct, but did assert that moving the goalposts at every segment of this crisis only makes it impossible to reach a deal. Okay, so what I'm asserting here is that these are deals, and I'm going to wrap it up right here. These are deals that was either proposed by Israel or by its allies, right? And Witkoff is a Zionist, right? He's a Zionist individual, completely in their corner. These deals were open-ended. This one, the Witkoff deal, doesn't even say, hey, there has to be a permanent ceasefire, right? That doesn't guarantee any of that. The hostage negotiations happen, both exchange happens before all that. Afterwards, after the hostages negotiation being the only leverage that Hamas has, right? After those are already handed over, then we go through for these negotiations and try to work out a permanent ceasefire. That deal, and doesn't have anything about right to return or anything like that. That's all. That deal, that was rejected. That was rejected after they had previously accepted it. So like this is what I'm saying.
Okay, so I disagree, but I think I understand why we disagree now, because I think my belief in what Israel wants and what your belief in what Israel wants are from two different are diametrically opposed, right? It seems that you're saying that these are better deals for Israel because we can get rid of the hostage negotiation portions and we can get rid of humanitarian aid handled predominantly by United Nations and Red Crescent, right? Because that's in all three deals, right? All three deals have this as part of their plan. right? So the major difference is the other two deals are negotiations for ceasefire that doesn't hold them to the ceasefire. And I think from your perspective, you're saying this allows them to get their hostages back and then continue a ethnic cleansing of the region. If it is your belief that Israel's primary goal is to ethnically cleanse Gaza, then I understand why you would believe those are better deals for Israel than the Trump plan. That is not my belief. That I absolutely agree that there are some Likud people and some military people that say wild, fucked up shit, and that there is a segment of the population that wants to ethnically cleanse Gaza and just get rid of the problem so far as they see it forever.
Mhm.
But like most nations, there's a diversity of opinion and thought within, right? Like that's not going to be a common opinion in Tel Aviv, right? Like it's just not, right? It might be a common opinion in southern regions, but nevertheless, the deal that Trump puts forward is the only deal that demilitarizes the Arabs in Gaza. It is a deal that gets rid of their guns, gets rid of their tunnels, gets rid of all of their weapons. And so if you are of the belief that what Israel wants since 2006 when they pulled out of Gaza is for Gaza to just stop being a fucking problem, that they don't have to constantly get bad media press in every time the IDF goes in, and that they don't have to worry about bombing them, having an international organization that handles the security while completely getting rid of all political power of Hamas and getting rid of all political, military power of the region, except those that are handled by international peacekeepers, is a vastly superior deal. But if you are of the opinion that what Israel really wants is just power to bomb all the Gazans out of existence so that they can build a resort there, I understand how you believe why that would lead you to believe that those other two deals are better. And I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on this. As far as what I can tell from this situation, it is not Israel's as a whole, especially desire to just kill all the Gazans.
Well,
I
to
think
be
what
clear,
they want is they do want power and they want control, but they also want to wash their fucking hands but not get attacked.
okay, so so again, I agree with what you just said, in that we probably aren't going to find a consensus on this particular issue, right? And for the reasons that you stated, for the most part. But I disagree that the problem that I was stating had much to do with the Israeli population, because it doesn't. I've specifically talked about the Israeli government, right? And in that government, there is plenty of support for the ethnic cleansing, right? They keep talking about it nonstop in that government, members of their party, and the ones actually in power, in positions of power, and part of a critical portion of Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition that keep him in power, and more importantly, keep him from this conflict. Helps him avoid jail time for the corruption case he's facing right now, right? Which he has been continuously lengthening. I guess people don't know, Netanyahu has a corruption case against him, because one great thing about Israel is they actually take corruption seriously. So whenever any of their leaders does it, they can actually get prosecuted, right? Americans don't know anything about that. But this state of emergency has helped him avoid, literally just slows down the process of moving this thing along, right? It just says, oh, something else has happened in Gaza and I can't be here for these proceedings. And so it pushes it out. So so he has every reason to continue this conflict because it helps him avoid jail time, and parts of his coalition demand that this conflict continues, right? So that's separate from who I think is.
I disagree. I don't think most of their power is in the it appears to me, and again, I'm not an Israel-Palestine expert, right? But it appears to me that most of the conservatives' power comes from the selling of safety, and it's not per se the selling. And when I say selling, I mean, to the voter base, right? That I'm going to take the Palestinian threat or the Gazan threat seriously. I'm going to bomb these people so that we don't have another October 7th again. And I think that can just as easily be maintained and just as easily be sold, as well as making all of the other individuals happy that want peace by having a deal that demilitarizes Hamas and takes Hamas out of power. So I think we just disagree here. I think the idea that Bibi, is avoiding corruption charges by extending the war seems like a goalpost shift to me from the original argument that Israel proper had rejected better deals and that this is actually not as good of a deal.
Wait, when you say Israel proper,
Yeah,
what do you mean by that?
What are you talking about?
It would be the government.
It would be the government. No one else.
Bibi,
like the voters
Bibi is
don't
not.
reject the
Bibi
deals.
is not. Bibi is not. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's not king of Israel, right? He's
Prime
not.
minister.
He's not,
but he's like
Right.
He's prime minister in war times. He's prime minister in
prime-
war times with executive.
Well, yeah, in war times, yeah. So he has even more power during a
right,
wartime.
but
Yes, true.
when we start
friend,
shifting away from
but
good
I'm
deal
not
for
shifting
Israel for
anything.
good deal for Bibi, I feel like
Hold
that's a
on.
fundamental
even
Then
his
maybe
own
there's a
even his own
misunderstanding.
people are like under recognition that he's just doing this to prolong and avoid his court case.
Yeah, what I just said
But
to you about that is that's not a controversial take
Yeah.
in Israel in terms of like the court case and corruption. That's not a controversial take.
I
right?
didn't
Like,
say that it was.
Yeah, but okay, sure. Well, then when I say, hey, what's a good deal from Israel, right? Just like, hey, what's a good deal for the U.S., right? Isn't what a good deal for Prime, right? It's not a good deal for.
No, I feel like
Scott.
there's a
It's about the
substantive difference
US
between saying
administration.
I feel like there's a substantive difference between saying this is a good deal for the U.S. versus this is a good deal for Trump specifically. Like that is a huge difference, right? There
Sorry.
are plenty of things
Well,
that
then-
are a great deal for Trump that fuck over the American
Sure.
public,
Then
and
let
fuck
me-
over
then
the
let me-
country, and
sure,
fuck
okay,
over
that's
the
fine,
other
fine.
political
I
parties.
mean,
and-
hold on. I
you know what I
agree
mean?
with
Like-
you completely. I agree with you completely on that, right? And so let me apologize if my language was unclear. When I'm saying a good deal for Israel, I'm talking about like who's in power, right? Like I stated previously, right? When we started this whole conversation, how did I start that? I said, hey, Israel doesn't want the hostages back. And then I made the distinction. Hey, not the population. The population very much does, and they march for the hostages all the time. I said specifically, the government doesn't want them back because they are a good tool, right? Propaganda tool to use to do anything they want.
yeah, I
this
mean,
point in
if
time.
the argument is and always has been that you don't believe the deal will succeed because Bibi and the political the political
the administration.
the administration, yeah, I was trying to think of a different word, but it's fine. In the current power,
The regime is what you should say.
the regime, yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah,
that.
that's the word.
Is going to reject this deal because it's not good for like their corruption. I mean, like, yeah, sure, but then we're just kind of back into that blackmail
that's
thing,
just their
as opposed to
corruption.
actually talking about and comparing the deals.
Well,
right,
it's not
which
just
is
their
like-
corruption,
Which is why I
their
was said in the beginning
political-
we have to, which
No,
is
no.
why I said in the beginning that we needed to, kind of compartmentalize this
No.
idea of like what pragmatically may or may not get done versus talking about
Sorry.
the specifics
What
of
was
the
it?
deal.
This-
Is this a good deal,
hold
bad
on, hold on.
deal? Will this?
You're
you know,
going too
could
far
this-
when you just say corruption, right? Like now, I think again, like Bibi's trying to avoid corruption charges, but I'm saying that a critical part of his coalition, right? They want this to continue, right? So it's not simply, oh well, just because they are bad. I mean, that's what I think, but like I'm saying that like the coalition, the reason why he's can stay in power at all, right? Is relies on this conflict continuing, and in a way specifically.
Why would this plan be different? Right? I mean, if the excuse is to avoid corruption charges were, we're at war and we have to do all of these operations and I have to be
Sure.
there for all of these negotiations. Why would that be substantively different than I have to be on the board of peace and I have to I have to go fly to America to do this and
Because
I
it's
have
not
to
war-
meet with Egypt and
Which
Israel.
is not a
and-
wartime emergency at that point. That's my understanding.
I mean, it is if you just say that at any moment any of these deals break down, then war starts again, and that like we're
I don't
trying
know
to
if that
negotiate.
flies in Israel. I don't know. I don't. And
yeah,
I'm
I'd need
saying
a-
that
I-
specifically. I
I feel
really
like
don't know if it does.
I mean, like, I feel like this argument, if you're right, which I don't know that you are right or wrong, right?
That's
in
okay,
terms of
yeah.
that, but I feel like it wasn't necessarily what I was talking about, but that's fine. Like maybe it was a
Yeah.
misunderstanding. I feel like it hinges on us talking to a lawyer that's more knowledgeable about
no, it does.
about
it doesn't,
Israeli
It does not hinge on
international.
that. It does not hinge on that. Like that's one part, right? Of like it's Beavis corruption case, right? Put that aside. Let's ignore it. Let's say I'm completely wrong, right? Put that
Okay.
aside. Then there's the other half being that his like coalition that he relies on, right? Because he wants to stay in power, right? And a coalition that he doesn't necessarily disagree with, is like wants to settle Gaza straight up, right? Wants to put settlements in Gaza. They've been clearing space, I believe, in northern Gaza, if I'm correct, for literally this purpose. They've been doing tours talking about the land they're going to give away in Gaza. So, like, that's the thing.
I fail to see how ceasefire agreements are somehow better for Israel because part of the political power structure of the current government that could get ousted out, especially in Israel, as we know, like fucking it's happened like 14 fucking times.
Ceasefire agreements
Something
are empty
crazy.
promises.
Right, but they're not like these are just ceasefire agreements. They're not plans. So it is kind of weird to compare the two, maybe. But even still, if we compare them, I do not think that they are so gung ho desiring or believing that their political power hinges upon Gazan settlements. Their political power hinges upon selling their population that they are the party of safety and security, that they're the neocon power that is going to
there are
do
multiple
so.
parts of the coalition, though, right? There's multiple parts of the coalition. So
But
yes, I agree with you.
But what is this plan? I mean, if we look at this plan, right?
But hold on,
This plan is going to attract investors.
Before
like,
you move on, there are multiple parts of the coalition, right? So yes, I agree with you. Part of that, right, is like selling safety, right? You are correct, at least from my outside opinion, right?
Right. I'm not Israeli.
Yeah, fair enough, right? That like, yeah, that's part of it, right? Like the people want to assume, know that whoever's in charge, they're gonna feel safe. That's like true of governments around the world, right? And oftentimes that's a good way for conservatives,
especially during war.
Exactly, right? So you are correct in that. I'm saying there's another part of their coalition, right? That like, and by that I mean the coalition, like the numbers they need to maintain their hold on the Knesset, right? Like these members want an ethically cleansed Gaza. They have the opportunity now, and they want to keep going, right? And if it looks as if Netanyahu isn't committed to that, right? If he collapses if he backs down on it for no good reason, it'd be one thing if like the U.S. literally forced them out of the position where they literally couldn't do it. But if he just like agrees to it when he doesn't have to, because like you said previously, they're winning. That's a critical blow. Like they could leave his coalition, and they don't have enough.
I think we just disagree on the assessment here. I do not buy the presumed fact that this hinges upon, which is that there is a majority of the government has a genuine desire.
I didn't say majority.
Enough that this is somehow a bad deal, right? That it would have to outweigh the other, which is a deal that does nothing and allows Israel to continue the war is better for Israel and better for those government and better for those in power than one that completely defangs their enemy that they've been fighting against, that guarantees their security and also guarantees some level of monetary gain and investment into the region. I don't buy that. But if you can send me like things for another time where like where there's like where you can be like, hey, no, there's these 14 people and like here's verifiable proof that their only desire is to kill all the Arabs or cleanse Gaza so we can build strip malls, right? I mean, yeah, there's a few errant
Lem-
quotes, but I haven't seen anything to suggest that that's actually
Let
beneficial
me
to
read.
Israel.
Let me read this super chat, and then why don't we get started
Go
on
to
the
the topic, I
actual
guess. Yeah.
topic? Yeah. FQ, $10. Thank you, FQ. I remember learning fascism and communism were evil through the lens of genocides they caused. If Gaza is seen as a quote unquote genocide of liberalism, does this reframe how we view such discuss ideologies or not? A genocide of liberalism. Have you ever heard that?
I don't know that I've ever heard that term used
I
that
think
way, but I'm in a
I
lot
think
of
what she
libertarian
means,
circles.
yeah, I think what she means is that it is happening under the watch, the governance of liberals, right? Being covered for by liberals. So yeah, I think that's what she means.
Right.
Sorry, it's happening. Oh, you mean like because liberals are watching this
Right, like
happen without doing
fascism
anything?
did a genocide, communism did a genocide. If liberals are doing a genocide, does this reframe how we discuss or
Right.
view ideologies?
Since we normally shit on fascism, communism because of their various respective genocides.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit this one out just because, like, that's not. I'm not a fucking consequentialist, right? Like,
Well, I don't think you need to
Yeah.
be consequentialist to. I mean, this is a question of
well,
just
no,
like
I don't. Communism and fascism and liberalism are not evil because they sometimes lead to genocide. They're evil because they violate human right to private property and liberty
okay.
by definition of their ideology.
But I guess the
that's
question
what makes them evil. Like,
right.
so like it's different for me.
But fair enough. But I think the question is like when we discuss communism, and I've seen you do this, and I do this too. When we discuss communism, one of the things that
Yeah.
we have a duty to bring up is the millions of people that have died under communism. Oh, like confront a tanky on the Holodomor or Pol Pot or stuff like this. And then if somebody's like a fascist, well, then you bring up the Holocaust, assuming that they even believe in it, and then that might lead to a whole different argument. But
Right.
you use that as like, hey, look, these ideologies, at the very least, like it is a negative aspect of totalitarian ideologies that they lead to genocides. And I think the question here is, well, these are like liberal Israel, like this is the most liberal society in the Middle East, Israel. That is
neoliberal, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think even compared to everywhere else in the Middle East, it is the most liberal society, at least in the Middle East. And the question, I guess, is this like the liberal genocide?
Well, but it's
They
more
got a
than
lot
that,
of
Reinhold.
killing
It's
to
like-
do to catch up to fascism and communism. That's I'll say.
Well,
that.
hold on. I know, and that's. I mean, I've talked about this multiple times here with Prime and Ali. I don't consider it at this stage. I don't consider it to be a genocide. So I think that's just the answer. I think that I was worried about there being a ethnic cleansing motivation, but assuming the peace plan is enacted, it looks like those worries are assuaged.
That's way
okay.
too soon to speak on
I
that. but
wanna-
yeah, I get it.
I gotta
Assuming,
deal with that.
I said assuming.
I have to deal with that in a second. But I just can't walk away from it. But like before I say what I'm going to say, Doobie, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it's more than just that Israel is the most liberal, quote unquote, country in the Middle East. It's that American liberals have been running cover for this thing from the start, right? Under Biden, through to today. I mean, some of the biggest like anti
Right.
pro-Israel voices online are liberals, right? Who just totally in favor of what Israel's doing. So yeah, I think that I think that's what just to flesh it out a bit more.
Yeah, I think it is
Yeah.
interesting that there's this belief, right, that like the radical left, they have certainly gained some moral currency, right, by being against the deaths in Gaza and the Free Palestine movement, right? And it is an interesting, great question, by the way. I'll just say that, like, good super chat. 'Cause most super chats are fucking stupid, but this is a good
No,
one.
they're all
Um,
great. Any super chats directed at me are all amazing.
No, that's a good
If only
question.
Frank's
I'm just,
gonna
I'm
come
just
on here and
saying
talk about it.
most super chats a lot of times are just, like, oh, tacit support or just like a regular question. It's a good question. I do think it is interesting that they've gained a lot of moral currency, but I mean, maybe this is just like my ANCAP lens or whatever. I don't think so. But it's not like the radical left is anti-genocide. It's not like leftists or pro-Palestinian people are anti-genocide. They are anti-Western imperial power and liberalism. They happen to fall on the moral side of being against all of these deaths in this moment. But like none of these people give a fuck about Christians being killed in Nigeria. None of these people give a fuck about the same people that are free Palestine leftists or communists, right, will do everything in their fucking power to dismiss the Holodomor or dismiss Lysenkoism or dismiss Mao's famines from killing the birds. I can't think. Great pest, right, or the four pests, right? Like over and over again, they will dismiss genocide and do everything they can to act like those genocides aren't occurring because the right political entity was the one doing the genocide. And so I think a lot of the radical left, like there are definitely people that are pro-Palestine because it's popular or because they think genocide is wrong and that's what they're seeing on social media and they're not that keyed into other genocides and things like that. But when we're talking about communists and a lot of these people, like they're picking this side because of the powers involved in this, which is because it is a quote unquote genocide of liberalism, because they're against liberalism, because they're against neoliberals, because they're against the Western hegemonic influence of capitalism, etc. They're not doing it because they're anti-genocide. And so it is interesting, though. It's a great question.
I think it's a good question too. And FQ, hopefully you're listening. In terms of what Scott just said, I only agree specifically Scott's talking about like tankies, right? Well, then yes, there's going to be some tankies who exactly fall into everything you just said, right?
Right.
But I think the broader leftist community does not feel that way. Acknowledges all those genocides, and say fuck any communist leader who's committed any sort of genocide under any ideology.
You think the broad leftist community would say fuck Stalin and fuck Mao? They're evil.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you defining?
100%.
Maybe this is a term of like an Admiral Gibbs issue type thing, right? When I say leftist, right, I don't mean people on the left. I mean people that are Marxist in their philosophy or socialist in their philosophy.
Like
I'm
Lenin?
So this would
socialist in my philosophy, and I can't speak for
Nice.
all other socialists. I'm socialist in my philosophy,
Okay,
and
yeah, fair
yes,
enough.
I acknowledge all that.
I just wanted clarification. I don't
Okay,
think
yeah.
that's true, but I don't think
that's
most of them
fine.
will say fuck Stalin, fuck Mao, fuck Che Guevara when they're wearing Che Guevara shirts.
I think,
You know what I mean?
I think the other way you can approach
Well,
this
I don't
is,
think. Sorry.
I think the other way you could approach this is like I think so the atrocities and no, actually I've read the letters. I think you can lump the Holodomor and the killing fields in Cambodia and the Holocaust. You can lump these into an actual like concerted effort by the ideology, right? Like the Holodomor was done in a specific effort by Stalin to cement communism in Ukraine. That was the goal, right? So when it comes
even if
to,
you don't call it a forced starvation, it was because we are pushing communism.
right? Yeah. When we're talking about like if you're going to assert that what Israel's involved in is genocide in Gaza, if you're going to assert that, I think
liberalism.
is it like is the motivating factor here really like liberalism, like or is it perhaps like ethno-nationalism, right? Is that the underlying goal, or
So and this
That's a
is
good
why this is why I interpreted this question a bit differently. And FQ, if you're listening, right? Like and like I was thinking of it more along the lines that our friend Doobie brought up, right? Like a genocide of
failure
liberalism.
to prevent is a problem of liberalism. Is that kind of what you mean?
Well, yes, right, but
Not just failure to present, but like the funding, fueling, arming. of
yeah,
that
it's
genocide.
not just a failure to present, like an active support, right? An active defense, right? At all points in time, when it was clear that Biden wasn't going to let this be like a 2-week bombardment, and then Israel's got its licks in, right? And so to calm it down, right? Now after that point, right, it was a full throated defense. There's been a full throated defense of this genocide, right, from the DNC.
By some liberals, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like again. So when I hear genocide of liberalism, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, and is it for the idea of liberalism as an ideology? That might be a bit more slippery, right? Like if you look at it specifically in that lens, right? But
Yes.
liberalism, I would say,
Enshrining of human rights is also part of liberalism. So, like, the argument against why
hold on.
genocide is bad is a liberal argument more often. Than not.
Yeah, but so point. Remember who you're talking to here, right? Remember how much I hate liberals and I despise liberals, and part of
I hate
that,
them too.
Right?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm just
Great,
spitballing.
no, good.
They
They're
hand
despicable
wash
humans.
for fascists.
They're despicable. And yeah, they're not hand washers. I said handmaidens. The handmaidens of
The
fascism.
ball scratchers for fascism.
The ball scratchers of fascism. I actually like that. I want to use that one too. I might steal that one from you. Yeah. So liberals at every opportunity will make excuse for fascism. So to be clear, right? Like you guys were saying that Israel is like the most liberal society. Israel is a fascist state. Zionism is a Jewish fascism. That's just what it is. That's how it operates.
I mean, they
right?
consider Trump to be
right.
fascist, so I guess
We're gonna-
Yeah, everyone's a fascist, and all the fascists
no,
get bullets.
Everyone
right?
is not. Everyone is not a fascist, and there's no reason to like to insult like my words like that, right? To belittle my words, my perspective that way. I'm not saying everyone's a fascist, right? I'm saying Zionism is a fascist ideology. I'm gonna go through that some other time, right? But you can disagree, but you're free to disagree with that statement. But anyway, if you believe, like I believe, it's clearly a fascist system, then liberalism defends it. Liberalism will defend fascism. It will never confront these ideologies because it's all only concerned with the status quo, only concerned with the maintenance of its own power. And so, like all these other things, like you were talking about, the idea of enshrining human rights into law, right? All things like that go by the wayside, right? When it comes in conflict with capital and power, happens all the time with liberals. They don't actually mean any of it, right? They don't. We side with the LGBT community. They'll abandon that, right? We side with the black community. They'll abandon that. All these things, you go down the list. That they all abandon it when it comes to protecting their power. That's what liberalism is. So this genocide. When I hear genocide of liberalism, I'm like, oh yes, a maintenance of empire, right? This is a genocide in which empire is maintained, is expanded, is reinforced. So yeah, if a genocide has to happen,
so we all agree
to do that.
We,
Well,
we
then,
all
yeah.
agree. Fascism, communism, and liberalism, and all the things in between them, which include your ideology, right? There's no magical sweet spot where it's not an evil genocidal ideology, all right? Are all fucking problems. So just be an end cap with me and be morally consistent.
No. Liberalism and leftism is very different, but I get you're making a funny, so I'm gonna leave it alone.
I'm sorry. There's a sweet spot that isn't fascism, communism, or liberalism. That's just the right amount of mix between liberalism and communism that doesn't do the genocide. No. Stop your contradictory nonsense and come be an ANCAP with me. I think you muted, or did I get muted?
No, I still hear you.
I don't.
I don't hear Prime.
Oh, I don't hear Prime. I hear
Yeah.
Scott.
I
just
hear
heard
Scott.
Black.
Yeah. Testing.
Now we can hear you.
Oh, testing. Okay, great. Sorry,
Yeah,
that happens sometimes.
It was
but
those
yeah,
liberals.
And Fairy Queen, another $10. Says Prime. Check DM. Okay. Slide check for Lisa Lowe. Some leftists say liberalism is tied to atrocities like slavery, capitalism, and colonialism. Defending liberalism drives American support of Israel, as DB said. Defending drives American
Are we defining capitalism as an atrocity?
Well, hold
We're
on.
just
Prime
sneaking
would
that
though.
in?
No.
Well, and to be fair,
Hilarious.
it says some leftists say. Okay, to be fair.
I just think it's funny. The slavery, colonialism, capitalism, all of these atrocities of mankind.
Do you see this Lisa Lowe? Check DM side chat for Lisa Lowe. Where is this? You guys?
I have heard this
I
take
would
before,
say-
though. I obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have too. It's just funny.
I don't see
Um,
anything in the chat.
Yeah.
I've actually heard Tankies respond to like the whole Holodomor accusation of saying, well, there is a ongoing genocide perpetuated by capitalist society
Oh, okay.
and for the last 200, 300, 400 years or whatever. And
Yeah,
then
they'll,
every
they'll send you
dead,
charts, and they'll be like, "Look how many
yeah,
hundreds of billions of people have died from capitalism," and you'll be like,
yeah,
"Sure thing, buddy."
yeah. And it was like hunger, right?
So under capitalism, every famine, every poor person that died, every
Famines
death
aren't a
is
thing.
capitalism's fault.
Yeah, famines aren't a thing under communism.
Well, no, but under capitalism they are, right? But not under communism. You got it.
Okay.
They're just natural disasters, an act of God under communism. But in India, they are capitalism's fault for sure.
Sure. Well, all right. Well, as long as we know no one agrees with that, here. All right. So, thanks for that conversation. I thought that was pretty interesting. I hope I think I gave you a thorough answer to my thoughts on the peace deal, Lactoid. I was planning on this being a lot shorter. There was something else. I actually wanted to ask Scott something, but like
The only thing I got from this whole conversation is that you like the peace deal. You're just a little bit skeptical of it actually coming into place. That's
is that what you got from
that
it?
is the one
That's all you
sentence
got?
summary, and that's what I'm
A
going to tell
little
people.
bit doing a lot of carrying.
A little bit
but
subjective,
yeah.
Scott. Right? Who knows? You don't
Well,
really
what
know.
happened with that meeting in Alaska with Putin? Did that ever materialize like anything? That was like a big deal at the time, and just like faded to the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah, that was
It's like
unfortunate.
nothing.
Yeah,
It's
and,
like-
and then he announced.
yeah.
Well, but here's the thing, though.
Yeah,
Here's
it's
the,
like big deal. Putin is coming to America, and then
I
literally
know.
nothing happened.
I was excited too.
But
But
and the
one,
whole flyover too. Isn't that a waste of taxpayer money?
I wouldn't have done the flyover. But I gotta say, to give Trump a little bit of credit on the Ukraine thing, okay? He's saying, hey, we're just gonna sell them the milk, like we're gonna benefit. We're gonna sell them the guns and sell them the weaponry, and Europe's gonna pay us, which is better than us just giving it. That's a fair point. At least we're making. At least our military-industrial complex is gaining some money. Okay.
Right,
And
yeah.
that's not from us. It's from our
At
European.
least the people who profit from
Yeah.
murder get
Right.
money.
Right.
That
But
makes it better.
Right. But the money's
It's gotta
coming
be
from.
murder, at least someone's making money.
Yeah.
Right? That's all that
Well,
matters.
exactly. The profit's coming from our European vassals as opposed to me. So it's like less me. It's
less you.
Yeah.
All right,
Gibbs,
let's
Gibbs would
get started.
agree. Yeah.
I'm sure he absolutely 100% would. You're correct on that one. But let's get started on our
That's somehow a
topic.
point in your favor.
On the topic. All right, boys.
Yeah.
We're starting the topic. It's only
Yeah.
10:20.
I'm sorry. And I still haven't done because I got to deal at some point. I got to deal with Lactoid and his genocide denial. Right, we got to deal with that at some point. That's something else I wanted to tackle, but we don't have time. Okay,
There's
so
lots to do with
see ya.
Lactoid.
I think this is probably like
They-
one of the very few instances where like technically it's genocide denial, but I don't think Twitch bans it. Right?
yeah. Well,
It's like the same thing
Here's
with
how
like
that
white
happens.
genocide. Like, is it genocide
Twitch
denial for you to
doesn't
deny
have
white
to-
genocide?
Listen, motherfucker. Twitch doesn't have a meaningful TOS for anybody.
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
True.
It just depends on how large you are and whether or not you support their narratives. If you're Hassan or Pokimane, you can fucking violate TOS every goddamn day and it doesn't fucking matter.
That's true.
Okay? And if you're a conservative and you start getting a fucking following, your ass is going to get banned. It's just going to happen. No matter what the fuck you say, you're going to say something dumb. You start averaging 100 viewers every stream, you're going to get banned.
Okay, let's.
Destiny was too right wing for Twitch. Okay?
Sure. Let's move on to the topic before we caught
Not
on
a bad
something else.
point.
Just know that I'm coming for your ass, Lactoid, one of these days. Any which way. Let's
Vaguely sexual.
take in the most
vaguely,
sexual
it's
way.
explicitly.
Take that. That's the only way to take that one. But okay. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Oh boy.
American
th-
gun carnage. All I can think of now is guns running around shooting people. Like the guns are doing it.
Indeed. Well, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Which is the opposite of what you just said. All right. Anyway. Let's. Thanks all for being here. Much appreciated, every single one of you. We've had a pretty fun conversation up till now. Hey, if you appreciate that conversation, consider supporting the channel somehow, some way. Right, subs to the channel, get subs. We have these types of conversations on the regular. They're a lot of fun. So like if you're on Twitch, consider helping out that way, or following the channel. Haven't done so yet. Thank you for those who do. And for our YouTube audience, consider a super chat like our friends Fairy Queen and Alexander Wynn did. When you do, we respond to them, and if it's a really good one, it like completely distracts us, and we'll just like talk about that. So like if you want us to interact with your comments, consider kindly supporting us through a super chat. Okay. So let's get the actual topic that I planned. Blame Lactoid. For us not being able to. Lactoid's the one who brought this up. I didn't bring it up. I was going to talk
He
about
did
it.
literally say, "Let's talk about Israel Palestine." He came in from the get go.
That's what he wanted.
I'm pretty sure he was joking, but
I accept full responsibility.
Okay. All right. So the topic. America is suffering through its regularly scheduled mass gun violence. One Saturday, an Iraq war veteran opened fire at a waterfront bar from a boat. At least 3 are dead. On Sunday, a church in Michigan was shot up and burned down by another Iraqi veteran. At least 4 are dead. Does the U.S. have the mental health care of its soldiers? Does it take the mental health care of its soldiers seriously? What does it mean to properly care for them? What, when, if ever, should people showing signs of instability be disarmed to avoid these tragedies? Okay, I barely managed to pronounce any of those words. Anyway,
are you showing signs of instability?
signs of instability, can be sure. But yeah, American gun violence continues on as always. And the regular, like the bodies, they rack up nonstop here in a unique way that never happens in any other nation, but for some reason happens in America. I brought up 2 instances of mass violence, but turns out there's 4 notable instances of mass gun violence.
There's probably one just
over the
during this
weekend.
panel. So
There probably was one. That's actually not a joke, right? There's probably actually one happening statistically. Yeah. So there was 2 more. There was one in Texas, I believe, a Texas casino. I believe that was the Texas casino, and then another one in some neighborhood in Pennsylvania. But yeah, just other instances of mass gun violence that happen here, and so. But specifically, I was thinking of this along the lines of veterans because we had 2 veterans, back to back, slaughtering Americans. And what should be done about that, right? Should we just have that mental health care conversation, or should we do something more? Yeah, I'll throw it to all these guys. So, Lactoid, start us off.
Yeah, I'm Lactoid TV. You can find me on Lactoid TV everywhere. First of all, very sad that this happened. Not good. Mass shootings are not good. Shootings are not good. And I can easily say that these shootings are bad, and I will continue to do so. Now, in terms of what kind of policy proposal we can talk about in terms of how to address this. I'm in terms of gun control. I know ultimately that's kind of what a lot of lefties are kind of hinting at. I'm guessing it's probably going to come up, just given the language of the topic. I'm opposed to that, obviously, for reasons that I've elaborated on before, and I'll no problem elaborating on again. In terms of mental health care provided to veterans, I think that when you have soldiers, you pay them. Just like with any job, you got to pay soldiers. And as part of the compensation package for a soldier, I think that providing them healthcare makes sense, especially if the injury that they get is related to their service. Now, I know a lot of veterans, and I know that sometimes what is a service-related injury is a little bit of a crapshoot, where sometimes a service-related condition where you look at somebody and they're missing a leg or something along those lines, and you're like, the percentage they get is lower than somebody who has like tinnitus. I know there's a hyperbolic example, but like the general principle holds, where you look at somebody and it just seems a little bit odd. I know that there is some criticism as to how these determinations take place. We spend a shit ton of money in terms of paying disabled veterans a crap ton of money. There's some people who are 90%, 100% disabled, but they also still work a job. Kind of odd. So I'm not saying that I'm not blindly in favor of just dumping money on veterans, but I think that one thing you can do is pay for their healthcare if they've gotten injuries, mental or physical, related to their service. So if this question is, were these Iraqi veterans getting mental health care, or were they denied access to? If they didn't have access to it for no good reason, I'd be opposed to that. I think it's fair to provide them some kind of health care. In terms of disarming people, maybe this is where I show my socialist side a little bit. I'm okay with disarming people who are actually crazy, but I want there to be some kind of actual court process in place that's very firm, very deferential towards the rights of the individual who has the guns. And if the state can't prove a case, that they give those guns back quickly. A lot of these red flag laws that are being proposed are pretty horrific in that the government is allowed to take your guns and hold them for, I believe, a couple years without trial, without any kind of work to actually show that you can't have them, and then finally after several years they have to give them back. That's ridiculous, right? I think that the government should have a responsibility to get some kind of process done within a few weeks, right? Maybe a few months, right? At tops, and maybe complicated scenarios. But in scenarios where someone is making wacky Facebook posts or drawing, blood on a napkin, like American Psycho, and you see them, walking around with a rifle or traveling to an area with a rifle, maybe it would make sense in that context to temporarily and with due process disarm them.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
So a couple of things. We can get into this in the open. I won't do it in my opening statements. But on terms, I can explain how the disability rating system works. I process that stuff in the Army. And why it looks weird, because it has to do with percentage stacking and stuff. But anyways, when we're talking about PTSD, I'm going to use the Army. Obviously, one of the individuals we're discussing is a Marine, right? But I'm doing so from what knowledge I have of how the Army functions. They function fairly similarly. The biggest problem that we have with mental health care is a punishment-based system for getting treatment for PTSD. We have to absolutely reverse this. One of the worst things you can do is say, if you've got PTSD, we're going to take your guns away. That is something that currently happens, right? My roommate, who is an Iraq war veteran, is not legally allowed to own guns because of his PTSD diagnosis. The problem with this is that soldiers know this. And so what they do is they avoid mental health treatment so that they can keep their guns. So if you want to take away people's guns because of mental health issues, what you're going to get is more people with mental health issues that are left untreated with guns. It's the dumbest policy you could ever implement. What you need to do is preserve their rights unless they are determined to be a danger to themselves and others. And if they are a danger to themselves and others, you don't take away their guns for 4 years. You put them in a mental institution until you determine that they're no longer a danger to themselves or others. This is having this concept where people will go to mental institutions and they'll commit themselves. Okay? They'll say, hey, I'm having mental health problems. I'm, things are really rough. I've had some suicidal thoughts. I want to get some help. And then what ends up happening is 4 or 5 days later, they go, I think I'm good now. I'd like to go home. And the moment that you say that, a doctor goes, actually, we're going to keep you for 2 more days. And then you go to try and buy a gun. And then all of a sudden you find out that you are permanently not allowed to own firearms because you were involuntarily committed. And that involuntary commission can even occur when you voluntarily commit yourself, but you try and get out. For anybody that wants to understand how these places can be really bad, there's this really famous landmark study that was done, I believe, in the 70s called Being Sane in Insane Places. Yeah. And it's a great, it can show you, and they've made some improvements, but not a lot. So the worst thing you can do is take away gun rights for people with PTSD, because this is just going to have more people not getting the help they need while having guns. Secondly, the military specifically needs some serious reform on the punishment-based systems for soldiers with PTSD. They will tell you over and over again, oh, you can get help. Oh, if you have a problem, speak to mental health. And then what ends up happening is people start talking to their friends in the barracks, and they hear all of the horror stories, many of which are true, some of which are exaggerated, where soldiers go, hey, I've got a drinking problem, hey, I've got PTSD, etc. And then they end up getting chaptered out of the military. They end up getting kicked out of the military. They end up losing on-post privilege housing when they have like a wife and a kid. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're a danger. You need to be in the barracks. So now they can't see their wife. They can't see their children. They're cut off from their support systems. There are a ton of different ways in which soldiers and Marines as well are punished for getting the mental health that they need. The last thing that I would say that we should do is if you have a PTSD diagnosis, I think you should have mandatory mental health evaluations. And if you refuse to go to them, then you should lose your disability status, and therefore you shouldn't get access to the funds. I think that if you are going to get a check for PTSD every month, then you ought to also make sure that you're in contact with mental health so that these people are getting help. And if you feel like you don't need that help, then you don't need that check from the government. And if you feel like you do need that help, then you should be getting the help, because the systems for veterans with PTSD are there for them, right? You can go drive to the VA. You can be seen the very next day. You can go check in a behavioral health clinic. They're right there whenever you want them. But the fact of the matter is that people that are suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder, and a lot of times it's paired with concussions, right? So the two are very similar, and there's a lot of issues with that. What ends up happening is they get home, they get into a depressive state, and then they don't go to the VA because the VA is a fucking nightmare. Because you can say it's socialism's fault, or we'll just say socialism hasn't been done right. There's nothing more depressing than having mental issues and going to the VA and looking at somebody with like a colostomy bag and no legs, and then feeling like, I don't deserve this. Other people deserve this more than I do. I shouldn't be here. And then there's this, incredibly long wait period. You go in to check into the ER or behavioral health, and they'll give you an appointment for 6 hours later. And then you have to come back 6 hours later. Like, there are reforms that could be made to make the situation better. That's socialism for you as far as I'm concerned, but that is how it is. But all in all, do not institute policies to take gun rights away from people with PTSD, not just because it is a fundamental human right and enshrined in our Constitution for whatever that's worth, but also because you're just going to get more people with untreated PTSD and guns. It's going to have the exact opposite effect, and it's already having that effect because there are punitive measures against soldiers with PTSD.
Corey.
I'll try to keep it brief. But actually, so I agree with a lot of the sentiments that Scott just laid out, at least within the framework that he operates in. Obviously, the fundamental difference is, like Lactoid, I'm Canadian, and so I don't revere the Second Amendment, and so I don't view guns as a human right. But that would be like definitely the fundamental difference. But within his framework and his logic, like I can totally see where he's coming from. I also agree with the sentiment in terms of poor incentives, where from what I understand, I don't know if it's an issue currently, but I think at some point it was an issue of doctors having mental health issues, or issues with substance use disorder, and it's like one of the issues. Like, well, they're not necessarily going to come forward because if they risk losing their medical license, it's like, well, there's literally you are disincentivized to actually come forward and seek the treatment that you need. And so I also understand, I think, that perspective as well. And so aside from gun control, I also, since I'm also Canadian, I believe in universal healthcare, and people should be able to access, especially veterans, should be able to access the healthcare that they need to address their mental health issues. And on the aspect of institutionalization, again, Scott brings up that great paper, which is a great paper. I encourage everyone to read and seek it out. Going or being sane in insane places, or insane in sane places. But yeah, I have the same concerns in terms of until we have a perfect way, if ever, of screening people for mental health issues. I'm concerned of actually institutionalizing people that don't actually need it, or we don't have good ways of actually screening them of like when to actually let them go. But I'll leave it there for now.
DB?
Yeah, obviously we need to do more for people's mental health, people in general. But what I'm curious about is, like, do we even know that this was a mental health issue with these veterans? Like, what were the motives for the shootings and burning down the churches or whatever? Like, I feel like there's a tendency to just say, oh, this is like a mental health issue, it's a gun issue. But I think in many cases, there is like an actual ideological reason for doing a thing, right? That's separate from any mental health issues they might have. So I haven't dug deeply into at least one of these cases, but I'd be curious to see if that exists. Because, for example, the Charlie Kirk shooter, people say, oh, there's a mental health issue, yada yada, but there was an ideological reason to do this, right? That was, I don't want to call it rational, but it made sense, right? This person is pushing this ideology that you think is bad for your society, for people you care about, so you get rid of them. That makes sense. I wouldn't call that crazy, right? It's bad, sure. And I think the same could be said for a lot of these ideologically motivated attacks. And I think just tossing it up to mental health might leave the, it's like we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay. And our good friend Ali.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what Scott said, particularly in terms of like the disincentives to seek out or follow through with treatment. Right, like if it is true that like you go in and they, if you go in voluntarily and then they commit you and now you're involuntarily committed, but now you can't get a gun, so on and so forth. Because I don't think this is a gun access issue. Because at the end of the day, if like we take away the guns, they'll find another weapon. That's kind of like my thought with this. So I don't know. Yeah, you can laugh, but I mean you can get the gun illegally, whatever it may be. Like they're gonna find a method to enact this like type of action. So I think it's more of like we need to see healthcare rights as the same way we see gun rights, right? As much as as strongly as people fight for gun rights and so on and so forth, fight for the healthcare rights, particularly and specifically for these soldiers, right? And then like the biggest issues is that I think like no one cares. Well, not no one. Most people don't care outside of the virtue signaling. Like for like the fact that they care for soldiers. So like Frogan says that like soldiers deserve PTSD and you just see the entire internet lose their mind for a week. But it's only so far as they can attack her. Outside of that, no one really pays attention or cares like towards the actual suffering of like the soldiers or the veterans. So I think that's like it's just like it's layered on like that.
Of course this is a gun problem. Of course it is. Of course it is. There is no other, like, okay, there are other problem, like societal ills that intersect with this, of course, right? But of course, like the guns are the big issue. Because like this is a uniquely American problem. There's endless amount of gun violence, right? It simply doesn't happen in any other nation. It happens in a nation with the most guns, right? Who could have guessed? Yes, it's a gun problem. Access to guns are absolutely part of the problem. Other countries have mental health disorders. People walking around.
No, not up here in Canada. We're all perfect.
Well, in the UK, everyone's getting stabbed. So I mean, like, I understand that guns are a bigger method. Guns are a bigger method, but the actual issue isn't the weapon being used. It's why the weapon's being used, right? This
is my response. Excuse me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so yes, people can get access to other weapons. I'm not saying that guns are the reasons why we have violence, right? Guns are
Fair.
the reasons why we have gun violence.
Fair.
So saying that yes, people might get stabbed, right, doesn't address the issue of gun violence, which is the thing that I have a problem with. The gun violence.
Yeah. So like
so it's a uniquely American issue because of how many guns are out there. Now,
Yes.
in terms of mental health, like you'll never catch me not saying that we want. I want to increase access to mental health. I want to increase access to all healthcare. Of course, I do.
Mhm.
It's part of my socialist project. But like it's like we can't miss the forest for the trees. I think it's plainly ridiculous.
So like my issue is like I'm coming at this. I try to come at this from like a realistic standpoint. We're not getting rid of all the guns in America. We already have them. We've been like this country's everyone here, not everyone, but a lot of people will fight tooth and nail for the Second Amendment. So like I have to understand that guns are here. They're somewhat here to stay. I can fight for reform, but we're not going to get reform as fast as we need it, and we're not going to get the type of reform you want, especially like with any immediacy, right? So like in a realistic standpoint, I think if you focus in on like making this a healthcare and just mental health issue in general, taking care of those issues and like I think economic issues for a lot of people. This is beyond vets, but like I think there's a lot of if you focus in on that, you can at least prevent the problem from like triggering, right? You stop the problem from the root, because the root cause isn't the weapon. The root cause is that these people feel like they have to do this, or like they're crazy, whatever it may be, and they're using this weapon to enact like their thoughts. That's
No.
Are you going to get rid of guns with any immediacy or haste?
Hold on. Don't worry. I can respond. I heard what you said. First of all, you're shifting the goalposts, right? The thing that I responded is you saying there's not a gun violence issue previously, right? Now you're qualifying it, and it's fine if you do.
So it's not a gun access
access issue. Yeah, sure. That's what I. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Maybe I said something differently. All right. It's not a gun access issue. Fair, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what I was responding to. And so I made the case for that. Now you're moving the goalposts. Oh well, it's about practicality, right? That's not really the issue. We can't actually deal with that, and so we have to look at these other things. That's a different argument. It's a fine argument to make, but it's a different argument. So as long as we can acknowledge it's a gun problem, then it's fine. To say that like, okay, well, like the root cause are these other mental health issues. Yes, sure, right? In terms of like the person is an agent, right? Is the agent, and the gun isn't an agent, right? The gun doesn't make decisions by itself. The agent is the human. However, the method, right? The preferred method for mass carnage in America is a gun, which you can easily get your hands on. So that's why it's a gun access issue. There are plenty of people outside of the United States have the exact same issues.
I understand.
Right? They exist there. And so that's why it annoys me when people try to minimize this. So that's what I'm responding to.
So my issue,
it's a gun violence issue. And the last thing I was going to say, one last thing, if I can remember quickly, is that guns? I lost it. Sorry. Well, you go.
Yeah. So like my issue is that we is that it seems like, especially people that come from like your perspective, is they focus so much on the guns that they forget that like when we remove guns, people use cars, people use they create about. I mean, once again, oh my God, sure.
Hold on. What am I responding to? Am I responding to gun violence or am I responding to violence? Which one? I made it very clear.
I mean,
you were saying that I was. You were saying the problem is that I'm minimizing the fact that it's gun violence, correct? Or that my perspective minimizes
Which one did I say that I'm concerned about? Is it stopping all violence or gun violence?
Well, gun violence. Obviously, you're not going to stop all
gun violence. So then it doesn't matter to say that. Well, like disturbed people can get other vehicles doesn't address my issue. Also, right? Those weapons are less effective. Let's not forget that, right?
Correct.
Literally, Al Qaeda. I think it was Al Qaeda or was it ISIS? I forget which one. One of them. I think it was Al Qaeda. They had like a magazine that they were like an online magazine that they were publishing to the internet, right? For any followers. This is like like 15 years ago or something, right? For any followers to read, right? And they were giving advice, right? They talked about in different countries. Okay, you're going to do a terrorist attack, right? What are the steps? Well, here's a helpful guide as to what to do. And they went down the nations, right? And like, well, yeah, if you're in Europe, right? Well, try to get access to a car, right? And like ram into a crowd. We saw that, right? That happened in France. Or like, get yourself a knife, right? But when they talked about the United States, they said, okay, forget about all that other stuff. You have just access to guns. Use guns, right? They're the more effective weapon, and there's plenty of them. Get yourself a gun, spray and pray. That's the advice, because that's the weapon of choice.
So this is just. I don't know why, when it comes to guns, you become a liberal, but it is what it is, right? Not everybody is perfect in their ideology.
That's the worst insult. Oh man, that was low. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah,
okay.
It was true. But like the thing is that like the UK banned guns in 1997, and fatal gun deaths plus fatal shootings has gone up about 20 to 30% since then, despite the fact that homicides have been trending down since the 90s. The fact of the matter is this is complete and utter cope, that because the gun is a better force multiplier in like a laboratory or shooting range situation, that this somehow means that if you get rid of all the guns, that actual crime, fatal deaths go down in any degree. Because when you get stabbed, it is a violent death. It is a force multiplier. And the idea of substituting the knife for the gun thus means that you're getting a decrease in deaths is just not, it's not true. It's not. Like when someone has intent to kill someone, but they lack the access to firearms for whatever reason, they do use other weapons, and sometimes those other weapons aren't quite as effective, and sometimes those other weapons are more brutal and more effective, right? When people want to commit terrorist attacks in America, they grab a gun and they shoot up a place. And when people want to commit terrorist attacks in the UK, they wait for a Christmas market opening and they get into a van and they run over as many people as possible. When we're talking about this most recent, these two shootings where I thought we were going to talk about mental health, but it's okay. We went into a gun debate. That's fine, right? One of the individuals that attacked the Mormon church was potentially using bombs and use accelerant and fire. We don't know which of these deaths yet. It hasn't. Maybe we do. Maybe it's happened since we've been streaming.
My understanding is it's 2 shot and then 2 burned down. That's my understanding.
Right. So half of the people killed in this last mass shooting were from the fire and the fact that, and if he had no access to guns, but maybe he would have, like, maybe we need more information, but let's assume there's bombs in the car and he's got a gun and he goes, I'm gonna grab my gun and I'm gonna shoot up some people and then I'm gonna, light the place on fire. Maybe I'll come back for the bombs. And if he didn't have the gun, maybe he would have planted the fucking bombs and there'd have been 16 dead. I don't fucking know. But this is an extreme cope, right? We have a gun violence problem in America because we have a gang violence problem in America. That is where the overwhelming majority of fatal gun deaths come from. And overwhelmingly, they come from handguns. They don't come from assault rifles or shotguns or hunting rifles. Overwhelmingly, the gun deaths in America are gang violence or they're suicide, right? And that's like, if you cook the numbers, you get more gun deaths, right? But if it's a suicide, they would have just fucking done some other way to kill themselves. But assuming we're just talking about murders, it's overwhelmingly handguns. It's overwhelmingly gang violence. Yes, mass shootings is a problem that is relatively uniquely American, right? They're mass shooting. Obviously, there's these little pop-ups that occur, like Christchurch shooting and things like that. But most of the time when we talk about a lone gunman that is trying to create as much damage as possible because of a political ideology or because they went crazy or whatever reason, it's usually in America, it's usually a white guy, it's usually like some type of sometimes assault rifle, sometimes it's, a fucking bolt action or some other hunting mechanism. But this idea that like, oh, guns are the problem is just a fundamental misunderstanding of statistics and the problem. When really it do be, you're right. Some of it's political ideology. Some of it I would attribute to statism and the fact that we force people to pay for and live with people they don't share values with. You know, that might be a small portion of that, but a lot of it is mental health issues. And, you know, it's a sad state of affairs, is my opinion, that every time this happens, you get people on the left, not communists, but people on the left that go, it's a gun problem, it's a gun problem, it's a gun problem, which does nothing but try and erode our fundamental rights and doesn't actually do anything to solve the problem. And you get people on the right that go, it's a mental health problem, it's a mental health problem, it's fatherless problem, but then they don't actually do anything to alleviate or fix that problem, and we wait till the next one occurs.
Let's let in Lactoid.
So I'm sorry. I'm using Grok right now to do a little bit of
To formulate an
research.
argument and get
No,
some thoughts.
well, it's in real time, right? I don't have time to like do full research, so I'm doing.
That's fair. That's fair. It's fine.
Yeah,
I accept.
Yeah. Anyway, it's telling me that gun deaths in the UK are not going up. I'm just.
I didn't say gun deaths.
They're pretty.
Okay.
I think they're
I
pretty
said
stable.
gun
and
deaths
quite
plus
low
fatal
overall.
stabbings combined, when you look at overall murder rates from both guns and knives, that it has gone up since the
makes
gun
sense.
ban in 1997.
That makes more sense.
Like gun deaths in the UK are like 30 a year or something now, because it's very difficult to
very
get guns
low.
there. But it's
Yeah.
like a couple hundred fatal stabbings.
Sure.
Compared that to the US, both of them combined are way less than the US. But
Right.
and that's even per capita. I think
Okay.
per capita
Well,
we're like
that's fine.
25 times
Yeah.
more murders, but we have a gang violence.
Well,
problem in
yeah,
America.
I misunderstood then. So, yeah, I think it's, and I've seen studies like from Rand on this that have done kind of broader analyses, and yeah, I mean, my position, if again, I sort of knew this was going to go into the gun control thing. My position is the same. Is it true that having more guns will lead to more gun deaths? Sure, we just have to accept that. Where things get a little bit, where things get a little bit more like
Don't eat it.
dicey, where things get a little bit more dicey.
Not Asian.
Alf?
Is when we start to like take a look at that and say, well, why should we care about gun deaths as opposed to homicides generally, right? That's like the initial question. The question should be on homicides generally as opposed to just gun homicides. The method of killing to me is less important than the actual danger of being killed. And the other thing is, yeah, you know, you're right. Having more guns leads to more gun deaths. And you can say, well, this happens to us. Like, it doesn't happen to any other nation in the world, any other, well, civilized nation, because, or I'm not going to use the word civilized, but
Because
you know,
there's a lot of third world
first
nations.
world,
with a
right?
lot of more
you know,
gun deaths.
Mexico,
Yeah.
Mexico, for example, has a lot more gun deaths, despite the fact they have much stricter gun control. Same thing with a lot of other kind of poor countries. But you know, if let's say Ali here, our friend Ali, you know, had one of his friends from Saudi Arabia here, you know, it's one of his friends from Saudi Arabia said, you know, you Westerners, like you guys have over 12,000 in the U.S. alone, over 12,000 deaths from drunk driving every year. That's not our problem. We don't have that here. We just don't allow alcohol. We have negligible deaths from drunk driving. You guys have over 12,000 a year. That's not a problem in our country. And he'd be right. It's not really a problem in Saudi Arabia because they have complete prohibition. Drunk driving is not really a problem in Saudi Arabia.
I don't
But
think that's true anymore, but yeah.
it is. I know because I wanted to
is
make
it?
sure
Okay.
it hit, right? There have been like
I said I don't know.
no, that's fair enough. There have been like a few cases, like here and there, but it's negligible, right? Especially not 12,000 a year. And so the question is, well, then we can just go ahead and, you know, this since it doesn't happen anywhere else, we should follow Saudi Arabia's lead, or
We lower the speed limit to 25 miles an hour. We can get rid
we
of
could do that
30,000
too. We could
car
do that
deaths every year.
exactly.
1 mile an hour.
Or
Wow.
or we say that, and this is the thing that Charlie Kirk said that everybody like for some reason thinks is like a meme or thinks is a dunk. But it's just, you can say the same thing about speed limits. You can say the same thing about alcohol consumption. You can say the same thing about guns, which is that when you allow people to do things, there are consequences that result from allowing people to do things. And that those people sometimes you do the things that you allow them to do irresponsibly, recklessly, maliciously sometimes. And that can lead to death. And that can lead to tragic death, but death nonetheless. I don't think that banning guns or going anywhere near what the UK does in terms of their level of gun restriction is palatable to me or most Americans where not only is it constitutional right, but guns provide I think an important source of recreation, hunting. I go hunting.
There's no recreation in the UK. That
Wow.
doesn't
Well,
happen.
not with guns. And there's recreation in Saudi Arabia too, but they don't allow alcohol, and we do. And I don't want to
True,
ban that. And I don't want to ban that, and I don't want to ban guns, and I don't want the speed limits to be 15 miles an hour on the highway. I want speed limits to be 80.
Yeah. So, I understand your argument that, hey, we make allowances for that. Like, a secure world is anything other than a maximally secure world is a world that allows for some amount of danger.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to say. Yeah. And so anything less than a full ban of guns, which I haven't said here, would mean that would have some level of gun deaths. Agreed, right? Well, Ali said that previously, right? Yeah, agreed. That does, but I disagree with your other point about like restrictions. We should have a lot more restrictions, absolutely, right? We restrict alcohol. We regulate alcohol, maybe not enough.
You regulate cars too.
We regulate guns.
We regulate cars. We don't regulate guns
There's a
enough.
driver's license somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
should.
sure.
Yeah, we should, and we just like we register cars, we should register guns. So like we have some of protections in place, but clearly not enough.
We
What
have
are you talking about?
also we have different kinds,
like registered
So,
to the individual.
like for example,
Yeah,
I
most guns are registered to the individual unless they're sold in a private sale or from family gifting.
That's not
that loophole needs to
no.
go
Hold
back.
on, that's also not necessarily true. You have to do a background check in most places, but it doesn't actually. My understanding, I don't think it goes on like a registry.
That's
Well,
my
The
understanding as
serial
well.
number on the firearm goes on the background check. So if they fire a firearm in the event of a murder, they then find the serial number, which then is registered to the person that purchased that firearm if they went through a background check. Now, yes, if you are someone that has, bought it illegally or through family or from like, small, there's small business like gun show things, etc. But what we have found is despite having gun registration, especially in places like Hawaii, where they like first put out these test pilots, is that overwhelmingly there is single digits of murders solved every year by gun registration. And the reason is because overwhelmingly gun death murders are illegal firearms.
Yeah, from stolen
so
guns.
gun registration doesn't really do anything.
Which would go to Prime's
because-
point, though, is that there's so many guns that there's illegal firearms that have like serials scratched off and so on and so forth that we don't know where the guns go to. So it the problem is
it
the
goes to
guns
the point
need
of
to get rid
like, right, but the registration of firearms is having a negligible effect on solving murders associated with firearms because overwhelmingly we do not have a gun access problem. We have a crime problem. We have a gang violence problem. That is where the overwhelming amount of gun
crime.
deaths
I
come
wanted-
from, and those are overwhelmingly illegal handguns.
I wanted to right. No, that's true. But I also think that the restrictions we have in guns, like whenever we talk about restrictions on like guns compared to cars, people always say like, well, you point to the very specific ones that cars have, but there are plenty of restrictions that guns have that cars and alcohol, even combined, do not have. So a classic one is in the United States, if you're a felon, even if it's a non-violent felony, which I disagree with, by the way, but if you're a felon, you are lifetime banned from owning a gun.
I disagree with that too.
Yeah, you are not lifetime banned from buying a car. You are not lifetime banned from buying
you can
alcohol.
sometimes get your rights back. But
What?
yeah,
It's possible. It almost never happens.
super expensive.
The process to do that is not only very expensive, it's also a massive pain in the ass, and there's no guarantee of anything. Now,
It's like
Yeah,
a
big-
5-year, like $100,000 fucking thing.
And felons, and honestly, like the vast majority of people with a felony are probably just not going to be able to afford that.
I would agree with you there.
Yeah, and background, I can walk in and buy a bunch of beer, or even they might do like a credit check.
Criminal
but they're
background
not going to
checks
do.
also don't work.
Yeah, they're not going to do it like a criminal background check on me for when I'm going to go buy beer or liquor, or even when I buy a car, they're going to run a credit check, but not not like a felony background,
right?
And so so you can like cherry pick.
Yes, but we also design. We don't do it well, but we designed the restrictions for the item, right?
That's my point.
Sure, guns are killing machines, right? Is that also your point?
No,
guns are killing machines.
Cars can be killing machines.
So
driving is killing machines.
Yeah, hon. Any tool, yes,
but it's not designed for it. It's not the intended purpose.
It's designed to kill. It's literally designed to kill.
Why is that substantively different than something that can be used to kill but isn't per se explicitly designed for killing?
Yeah.
Why is that substantively different? Why does that pragmatically make a difference in regulation, or morally make a difference?
You'll probably bite this bullet, but I think most people would probably agree of like, in terms of locomotion, okay, you can get around in a car and a tank, okay? I think most people would be against the average person owning a full-blown tank that's like armed to the teeth.
Yeah, but you've just stepped aside my question, right? Like,
then can you rephrase it?
I'll bite that.
Repeat it?
Yeah, I'll bite. The
I know
bullet.
that you'll bite
yeah,
that
you
bullet.
should be able to have the tank, but that's neither here nor there to my question. What is the substantive difference between a knife that can be used to kill people, but isn't per se designed to kill people?
It was meant to fillet fish.
Obviously, there are knives that are designed to kill people, but setting that aside, right? Like, why is it the argument? Well, guns are designed explicitly to kill people. Therefore, what? Why is that substantive different? Why does that make a difference?
I think that's different because it's pretty much, I mean, ultimately it boils down to a values question. Like, do you value something that its explicit design is to kill people? Okay. Whether that's, for self-defense or for active murder, I think that actually changes the calculation. But
that's just a fifis. That's just, I feel, because of my values. I'm asking in terms of stopping violence, in terms of regulating out deaths, in terms of saving lives, etc. Why is it important to denote that this is designed to kill people versus something that isn't designed to kill people?
Sure. One, I don't think that what Corey said previously about the tank in the car was a sidestep at all. I think it's directly addressing the issue.
It is if I ask a question and then you ask me a question so that you hope the audience will bite a bullet instead of answering the fucking
question. Oh my God. Calm down. Please breathe. Thank you. Much appreciated. Right. No, like it's with how this item will be used, right? Will the vast will people use this item for killing? Well, no, most people will use a car for driving, right? Deaths will happen.
Do you think that's not true for guns? Most people do not use guns for killing people. Overwhelmingly, most gun owners use them for sport, for hunting, or for
killing machines.
Defense.
Period. Right? They are for guns are for designed to kill, right? And they can kill anything, even if it's hunting, right? Like that's the design is to shoot an object, a dangerous object, to have some sort of lethal or near lethal effect on the target. So yeah,
why does that matter?
Well,
because
go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'll try to maybe try to link it to. Do you believe? I don't know, actually know for sure, but like, do you believe intentions matter in terms of like, do you make a distinction between like murder and manslaughter?
So you'll answer that question by asking me another question. You're going to try this tactic twice in a row?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Well, then don't say you're going to answer the question when you're not going
to try to attempt.
Anyways.
So
I'll answer your question. I'll answer your question. Yes, I will answer your question. Mens rea does matter in certain circumstances, but we're going to get into a big rabbit hole of like when mens rea matters and when it doesn't.
I know.
So it doesn't matter.
That was my question. I asked a simple question.
It doesn't matter.
Do you factor in intention?
Well, I need a complex answer regardless because you asked me. So it matters. It does not matter for restitution, as far as I'm concerned, from my philosophical worldview, but it can matter for retribution, right? So if you take a life by accident or you take a life on purpose, you still owe a life. You still owe that compensation for restitution. But in terms of justice of retribution, then intent can matter in that domain.
Okay, so you recognize that intention changes the calculation. I think for most people that holds true in terms of like something that is intended to kill, as in assuming that's the actual intent of the design, that changes the calculation to something that is intended. Again, my tank and car
What
analogy,
calculation?
just in
what
your
calculation
calculation,
is-
in terms of your
No,
calculation
no.
of retribution.
You're sidestepping the question.
No, I'm
The
not
question
sidestepping
is,
the question.
why is it that that it's designed for explicit killing is an imperative difference in how we treat the law of that item? And what you're saying is intent changes
same
the
reason why
calculation. That's
the
not an
intentions
answer.
of manslaughter and murder are different, and that is reflected in policy.
So I think the difference, I think the confusion here is there is an intention of action is like wholly distinct from like the intended purpose of an object. If I like,
Right.
But there's
The intention would matter for the murder with the
Is
gun,
there intention
not the
behind
fucking
design?
gun.
And you might not recognize like
there might be,
I'm just
but
curious, like, do
yeah,
you recognize that there's an intention behind a design,
we do, yeah,
or
but
that it's just it's a
sure,
coincidence.
sure. But what we're saying is the intention behind the design doesn't matter. The only two questions that matter is the danger posed by the object and the intention of the operator. Those are the only two things that matter. If I am more deadly with a,
but that's the fundamental difference. So like that's where.
well, right. Well, for us,
Right, but you're making an argument from feelings. Like that's not a real
That's
argument to say that because this thing is designed to kill, or because
I
this thing is
highlight the
designed
difference.
for
That is a difference.
multiplication of force. Yeah, there's a difference between fucking granite and slate. That doesn't mean we need different rock laws because there's different rocks. Okay, like there needs to be a reason for a law. And when you were talking about intent and mens rea, you're not talking about mens rea of the design of an object. It means a guilty mind. It means that, I mean, literally from Latin, right? It means that you intend to kill someone versus you were doing something and accidentally killed someone. That is the difference of intent. That has no application to the intent of designing a knife or designing a gun to, have more multiplicative force or fire more rounds per minute or, cut up somebody's guts because it's serrated so it's more painful, et cetera, et cetera. Like these are fundamentally different things. You haven't answered why that intent that you are
I answered
identifying
why. You just
is
understandably
why it
don't
should
agree with
be.
it. And you can disagree with my
You're
reasons
just saying
why.
they're different. That's not a reason. That's just a
I tried
description
to
of a
highlight
difference.
how they are different, as in I tried to pinpoint it and distill it as best I could.
Why is it, okay, that we ought regulate firearms as opposed to other things that can be used to kill them based solely on the
Okay,
design
so again,
of the craft?
I'm curious if you'll bite this, but you probably will. Like, okay, when we get to the place of
Just answer
everyone,
the question.
I've
I've answered two of yours.
yes,
I've bitten 2 bullets for you.
you've also gone
Answer
in a
the
long
question.
diatribe. I just asked a simple question about intention, and then I didn't need about your retribution and all that stuff. A diatribe. Just wanted to just ask a simple question, so you can.
Yeah, you asked a simple question, and I gave you a full answer. You haven't given me a simple fucking answer. Answer the goddamn question or shut up.
I'm
Why?
trying to. Yes,
Go.
because I want to see what your positions are. I already answered my question why in terms of I highlighted a difference to me. You don't have to agree with those reasons. That's totally fine. But then you're just asking why again is going to repeat the same thing. So then I would ask you of like
Why?
if and do you want me to repeat the same thing?
I
can
want you
repeat
to
it.
give me a why, not just a
No,
description.
you want a why that you will buy that fits into what you want. But that's a fundamental disagreement.
No, I'm not going to
That's totally
fucking agree
fine.
with you. What I want is
I'm
for you
not
to
asking you
actually
to agree
make
with
the
me. I'm
argument
not asking
so I
you
can
to agree
tell
with
you
me.
why
I
you're
didn't
wrong.
ask you to
But
agree
you're
with
too
me.
much of a
I didn't
pussy
ask you
to
to
make the
agree with
real
me.
argument.
I didn't
So
ask you to
make
agree
the
with
fucking
me.
argument
I didn't
or
ask you
shut
to agree
up.
with me. When did I ask you to agree with me?
Make the argument or
I
shut
don't
up.
need to do. I don't need to anything that you.
Okay.
I
Right,
don't
so
want
you
to.
won't
Alright.
make an argument.
So
You'll just
can
dance
I-
around
Yes,
and
yes,
ask
we're-
questions
we're gonna-
and try and
we're-
get the other person to seem
We're gonna
crazy.
try to break this. 1 second before you respond.
I can ask a question that can maybe break it.
No, before you respond, Lag, to it, just see a quick super chat, which is quite amusing considering, right? Alexander win $10. I'm like an hour behind, but this may be the most normal and human I've ever heard baby at all. All right. We'll see you in the future. So,
What have I said that's not normal or not human? What I'm saying are basic conservative arguments right now.
You usually
They're not,
come from
they're
a
not even
place of
fucking
like,
ANCAP shit.
yeah. I think that's what he's saying. Is like you with the ANCAP hat off.
What he's saying now, like now I'm what? Not normal, not human. These are anything you could hear from a fucking Republican dad at a Thanksgiving table. There's nothing crazy about what I'm saying. The only one being crazy right now is the people avoiding questions.
No, he's saying this is
Alexander
the most normal you've been.
Yeah, you missed what he said after that, which is that he's an hour behind. And he's saying, we'll see you in an hour, is what he said.
Yeah, he's
as if to imply I'm not being normal and human right now.
Okay. My apologies.
I'm saying that I think what he means by being normal and human is that like not freaking out and yelling at people in the specific way that you do. But I'm not trying to criticize you.
I only yell at commies. Luckily, you're all commies.
Okay, well that's fair. All right, we'll hear from another commie. Go ahead, Lactoid.
Okay, so this is Corey. On my shelf right now, I have a katana. Okay, looking right at it.
Not
It is
the more
Designed to kill.
It is a.
Of course you do, white guy. Of course you do.
It is a Japanese weapon with one sole task, which is to kill. Okay. Should the restrictions on me having a katana be greater or lesser than me buying a crane with a wrecking ball attached to it?
Because again, I would go back to the same argument in terms of like the design of intention. In terms of like, so I agree with you in terms of outcome. Obviously, I've never operated one, but a crane with a wrecking ball, like will wipe out more people than a katana. Although I've never seen you use a katana, so maybe you can actually outcompete.
I'm not that impressive with it. Okay.
Yeah. Based off what I've seen of your physicality, I don't think that's in the cards for you. But
but I can drive a crane with a wrecking ball on it, right? Pretty easily.
But I think my same argument holds true in terms of its intended purpose, in terms of how it was designed to be used, and that in terms of its actual utility in society, the ability to knock down buildings, just like in the utility of society of the ability to drive cars for locomotion. That there's a whole bunch of positive outcomes associated with that, as opposed to a katana with its intended use. Aside from your amusement and you trying to, be perceived in a certain way, I don't really care about all those particular outcomes. But that's just me.
Well, but you would agree that the intention of the object should be irrelevant to the restrictions that we place on any individual getting a hold of it.
Not wholly irrelevant.
Okay.
As in, so I will pose the question to you in terms of like, if the design of the intention of the design of whatever it is doesn't matter, then again, when we get to the place, of everyone has the ability or access to a device that ends the world, you're okay with everyone owning that device?
No.
Well,
but it's got nothing to do with the intent. It's got to do with the risk.
Well, then I think that would be
right.
That would separate you probably from Scott's argument potentially.
Well, no. So like, if there was a button that
It's just, trying to throw it back to me when you're losing.
I would.
It's real fucking simple. It's real fucking simple. Do you think that you should regulate all the fucking katanas and make people pass a background check, but not to buy a fucking wrecking ball? Of course you fucking don't. You absolutely would be like, I don't know, if some guy wants to buy a wrecking ball and a crane, maybe he should have a fucking license or something. But a fucking katana is relatively harmless. Like you just won't bite your bullet. I bit 2 of yours and I'll bite a 3rd one. Recreational nukes, motherfucker. So bite one bullet.
I oppose recreational nukes and recreational nuclear plants.
And wasn't I correct that that separates you from Scott's argument? Okay, and that's I was going to pose that question to Scott just to tease it out.
I don't think
you running away.
Okay, I think there might be a difference between me and Scott when it comes to like the magnitude of the effect and how comfortable we are with like the potential risk of like a civilian having that.
Me and him,
and I would apply that in terms of we had a whole debate on this.
Debate about this.
We did.
And the debate, my entire argument for that debate was that the concept of a nuclear weapon is the same thing as a gun that is loaded and pointed at someone.
It's all the
because
same.
of the relative risk.
Right?
It's not the same.
Look, you're not. Hold on. There is some disagreement between me and Scott as to the evaluation of the danger posed by various objects. There is no disagreement, however, I think on the real point, which is that when I'm evaluating objects, I am more concerned with the intent of the operator and the risk posed by the object than I am with the intent of the object. If somebody has a knife,
and that's what I said in terms of the fundamental, as in I factor in the intent of the design of the actual article. You can disagree with that, and that's
we disagree.
fine.
We disagree with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll parrot my friend
Just to be
Scott.
clear, I'm not asking you to agree with me, Lactoid, just to make that explicitly clear.
I'll parrot my friend Scott and say, well, I don't make univariate analysis, right? So there's no reason to look at it within like one single axis, right? Like, so yes, it can be the intention that we were discussing, but also, yeah, the amount of risk.
Crime has to be univariate analysis. Can't do a non-univariate analysis on crime. It's either true or false. You're either guilty or innocent. You can do a bunch of different things to try and determine state of mind or look at evidence, but it is either true that the person committed an act that they are guilty of and need to be punished for, or they did not commit that act.
What does that have to do with what I just said? I'm sorry. I really don't know. What does that have to do with what I just said?
Because when we were talking about intention and behavior and usage, we were talking about crime, right? When we were talking about as opposed to, yes, if you want to talk about the regulation of firearms from a consequential analysis, you can absolutely use that, but you're now in a domain of consequential law, not necessarily an analysis from the perspective we're talking about, which is the state of mind and the intention of the actor in the moment of a crime. That these are two separate things.
I wasn't talking about the actor. I thought we were talking about the object.
Maybe I misinterpreted your delineation.
Well, yeah, I think that he was referring to the object, but to criticize, I think you guys are the ones doing the univariate analysis here. We're talking about all the various non-killing people things that people use guns for. Like guns kill people, like in the sense of they're an object that can kill people. But they're also used
a good thing.
for
it's
sporting.
morally good to kill some people.
They're used.
And you're evil.
Twitch.
If you're
I'm not saying this.
If
you
self-defense,
Twitch. It's not me. Twitch. It's not me. Twitch.
Twitch's TOS to say that self-defense is morally justifiable
for sporting. Twitch, sporting and hunting, and sporting in Minecraft and hunting, which I go hunting and
hunting politicians or
the
animals.
largest game, right?
No,
or conservative commentators. Do you do that?
No.
Okay,
and those are things that I think are things that people use guns for the vast majority of the time.
Okay.
And now you're saying none of that, like that, we can't look at that. Like they're killing machines. They're just killing machines. That's what they are.
No, hold on, John. They are killing machines. No, because they are killing machines.
It's like literally what they
are killing machines. Hold on. I didn't say that they can't be used for other things. Like, did I say that the tool
a car is a killing machine that can be used for other things too?
No, it's not.
I mean, you can try that. Killing machine that then can be used for other things.
Most guns are meant for hunting or sporting.
What everyone understands to be a killing machine, right? You can try to twist that and understand. Well, a car is no, it's not. A car is a tool for locomotion, right? That can very easily be used.
And also,
to,
you got to talk about the modus operandi.
But no.
So we get
is
that.
a car
Who
and a tank a killing machine in the exact same way to you?
No.
Okay, so you do recognize that there's a spectrum there.
I just want to say, I'll bite that bullet. I'll bite that bullet. I don't care if you call it a killing machine or not a killing machine. Sometimes it is both morally justifiable and not just justifiable, the right thing to do.
You don't need to go down this argumentation.
To use a gun to kill a person.
Twitch.
If I'm open carrying, or let's say I'm concealed carrying, okay, in Richmond, Virginia, and I find a man who is raping a woman at gunpoint.
Oh my
is
God.
it morally wrong for me to use a firearm to stop this rape?
We agree. I didn't call it a murder machine, did I? Right? I call it a killing machine. Right? Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. So you agree. So some killing is not only justified but morally good.
I've never said
so why?
Right?
If
a tool, of the law, right?
If a tool
is alcohol a liver killing machine?
If a tool is capable, if a tool is capable of being used,
don't run that experiment, Lactoid.
If a tool is capable of being used in not only a morally justifiable but morally good action, and that without that tool, I am less likely to be able to engage in this morally good action, then how can it be right for the government to restrict my ability to do something that is morally righteous and good? How can that be good? It is the
of the
antithesis
risk
of good.
you using it in other ways, right? We regulate that risk. We understand that yes, it can be used in legitimate.
So this is
ways,
the
right?
argument of the lesser of two evils. It is okay to
okay,
engage in evil, which is the
Okay, well,
regulation
sure.
of good, morally good activity.
Yeah, I can't wait for
because
Alexander
you
Wynn's
believe-
follow-up super
because
chat.
you
It's gonna be
believe
great.
because
It'll
you
be $100.
believe this is not. I'm fucking cooking your asses,
Oh,
and you
yeah,
keep
okay.
interrupting me because you know that I'm cooking your asses. It is very simple. There is an action. The action, the tool facilitates the action that is morally good. You're saying that it is good and right for the government to restrict righteous and good activity and to reduce good in the world because you believe that it will lead to less bad in the world. You are choosing something that is definitively, that by definition is evil, and saying that you are good by being evil.
Oh, okay.
True,
I've never
we all
said that
said
was
that.
good. I'm
I
actually
remember
pretty
you. I
sure.
remember Prime saying those words exactly.
And by the way, a
Yeah,
tank is
I'm
only
not-
more of a
I'm
killing machine
actually-
because it actually, in effect, poses more danger. If a car did, a car would be more of a killing machine.
1 second. So I want to look. I honestly didn't want to turn it to just a gun debate. Like I was just responding to what.
That's the first
hold
thing
on.
you did.
No, hold on.
Right after opening statements.
Motherfucking Ali said a thing that I had to respond to, and so I
It is
responded to the
opening.
thing.
You're very.
And then-
You were the first person to talk in the open, and immediately
Yes, and
went
then-
into
and
it's
then
the guns.
People who had the biggest problem with it was not Ali, right? That was you, right? That was you. That was Scott Lactoid.
I'm just saying you
but
can't
one
be
second.
like it's not my fault, even though
Hold
I
on,
was
hold
the
on.
first
But
one
I'm
to
saying
talk
that
and immediately went in this
in-
I
direction.
acknowledge it was going to be about the guns. I didn't say that we're not going to talk about
but
it.
I in the remaining time, right? I'd like to try to do some mental health stuff.
We all agree
um,
with like.
Well, one second. Hang on. Before
No,
I
the
think
veterans
I
should
might-
not
I
have any
might-
mental
hold on.
health.
1 second.
I think I
one
might
second.
have won in the opening on the mental health. Is real reason why we went into guns.
Super chat. But I have one question about that. Fairy Queen for $2 says recreational war has let's go. Bam.
True.
I trust
Like-
Elon Musk with nuclear energy more than I do the United States government.
Oh my god. All right.
Isn't that like one and the same at this point?
Oh my god, the failure.
They're pretty
of-
close.
It's
They're
okay.
pretty
It's
close.
fine.
Yeah.
We just have to leave that alone. But Alexander Wynn, $5. Thank you, Wynn. Maybe caught up. Corey, if I write a book intended to destroy minorities, but it actually did nothing because it sounded like satire, should it be regulated?
Well, depends on what you mean by intended. Like, if this book actually has a nuke inside, but like if it's just words, like.
No, like what if he genuinely and deeply believed, and there was some scientific evidence to support the notion that a certain combination of words would kill only black people if read because of the specific type of neural pathway. And he wrote this book, and
like
it
a
was
mind
based
virus.
on science.
And it was written by
designed
Margaret
to
Sanger.
kill blacks, but it was right. You got it. And then it turns out that the science wasn't good on that, and it actually didn't kill any black people. Would you regulate that book?
Well, okay. If I actually had access to his thoughts, and like I saw those thoughts, and he actually knew the information of like if these people read these words, they will die. Well, yeah, I would regulate that. Yes.
So you'd only regulate it
if it's-
once we have Minority Report under your lovely
We're
liberal, totally not
we're not
Wait a
necessarily
minute,
far
hold on.
away. We're not
Would you
necessarily far
regulate?
away.
Wait a minute. Would you regulate access to the tape from The Ring, right? Where like you watch the tape and then you watch the video and then you die? Would you say like, hey,
depends on
maybe we
depends
should,
on what you mean by regulate.
deny?
I would regulate the videotape from The Ring, just to be clear.
Okay, yeah.
I would say that if you disseminate it, right, then you should be publicly hung and then skinned alive. I wouldn't
Okay.
regulate the book itself.
Or the
tape
okay.
itself.
What?
Yeah, like if you give someone a copy and you commit
just trying to
fraud
break
or
the
you
rules.
illicit act,
That's your punishment? Like hung and then skinned alive?
Yeah, I mean,
In
like
which-
if you, it's the Ring. This is a serious offense. All right, we need a serious punishment to fit this crime. If you are intentionally trying to spread and not telling people the dangers of this item in the hopes that they will die from a murdered ghost that crawls through the screen, and it's true and it works, we need some draconian shit
Yeah,
to make sure
I-
that motherfuckers don't do that.
I agree. I think I would go as far as to ban the videotape. I would say.
Yeah, like wouldn't it just be easier to do that rather than, like finding people, investigating and hanging them, and also still
Would it
having
be
like
actually
thing-
easier to ban the
like,
videotape?
doing
Yeah,
its
well, yeah,
thing?
because if hold on, if we
You don't
let
think people would be making copies and so on. And
if
so
we let some people
forth?
have it, one of these motherfuckers is gonna like break into the broadcasting station at CNN and then just like wipe
Yeah,
out.
I mean-
like I can't have
Wait,
that.
I mean, like, it's
CNN has
obviously,
to watch it.
it's
how
obviously,
do you
listen,
ban the
it's
copies
obviously-
and the copies of the copies and so on and
it's
so
a,
forth?
I was treating it as a fucking joke because obviously it's a fucking joke, but I would give the same exact argument that I give for nuclear warheads, right? Which is
Let
when you
people have them.
have some type of some type of object
Recreational
right,
ring
that is-
copies for everybody.
that when you have some type of object that is extremely dangerous, we have to then go, okay, what is your intention for having said object? Why do you have said
Why does the
object?
intention matter?
And the intention matters very specifically because a nuclear warhead, for example, is a threat to the vicinity of any accidental thing, right? Like Chernobyl could happen again, right? Let's say we got like, what are those fucking rods with the graphite or whatever? I forget what they're
I know
called.
what you mean.
The cooling
Right,
rods
right.
or something.
Yeah, they have like a certain name, like RKMP or some
Yeah,
shit,
you're right.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
right, like so, like if you have those, right, then this becomes more than just an issue for like an insurance company, because what you have done is that you have communicated that you have this dangerous weapon and that you're brandishing a firearm. Right? Like it's no different than pulling out a gun and waving it around with bad trigger discipline. Is that you are in effect threatening my life by having nuclear warheads and not proving to me that you are engaged in safe activity. Right? So, for example, if Elon Musk had a nuclear facility that didn't have active warheads that was for power generation, and he showcased, like he built it on a mountain somewhere away from people, and he showcased that he had these, all of these great safety regulations and things like that, then he is effectively communicating via his actions that he has no intent to harm me and that he is doing everything to ensure that this product doesn't harm me. But if he were to build a cheap one right in the suburbs of Chicago and it had like that graphite problem, then what he's communicating is I'm playing with fire and at any moment you might get burned. And so that becomes the same thing. It's the same reason I can defend myself if a gunman points a gun at me but doesn't actually pull the trigger. I can defend myself against that threat of aggression. The nuclear warhead would be the same thing. And a videotape that, if disseminated, could wipe out the human race if it got on too many computers would also communicate that same thing. Unless, for whatever reason, it was like a science lab somewhere that was like blocked off from the internet and was studying this videotape for scientific purposes to try and understand how this works for future technologies. And like they had air-gapped machines in Antarctica, then I'd be like, yeah, you should be able to have that because you're not communicating a threat of like playing with fire.
So I wanted to ask, and this is the thing I wanted to do previously. Hold on, there's a super chat. So $20.
Better be Alexander
Um,
Wynn.
Alexander Wayne, indeed, and I very much appreciate you. Thank you so much. But and Fairy Queen for being so kind as to help out. And there might have been someone else. Assuming a supernatural video. Oh, okay, we're on this one.
Mhm.
Assuming a supernatural video.
Already starting off crazy, yeah.
We probably need news laws. But if new laws. But if magic turned out to be real, and you could curse people to death by it, and it was impossible to trace, would you arrest people trying to learn it? Scott and Lactoid?
I guess it
So, like, you
depends.
could curse a person like
It's
a
a very,
voodoo
it's a
doll or
very
something, right?
fantastic. Like I don't know, because the fantastical nature of the question like really brings in like a lot of fundamental questions of reality. I don't know that I feel like I've given an answer on nukes and the tape to an extent that like my opinions are known. I don't know that I have a good enough answer on this because like I have a million other questions how this world works.
Yeah. I understood.
My answer is pretty
Um,
straightforward. It depends on how the mechanism of magic operated. If you could just curse somebody like from the privacy of
Like
your
a
home,
Like the
Could
Etsy
actually
witches,
or
like
curse
the Etsy witches to Charlie Kirk.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like curse.
Yeah.
By the way, there's an interesting a lawyer confronted me on this. There's like an interesting legal question as to whether or not technically they should be considered accessor, guilty of attempted murder, under the definitions of attempted murder, because you don't actually need to if you believe that it might cause somebody death and then you
Well,
do
they have
it.
motive, but they don't have
technically-
means. 'Cause
The
it's not-
intention.
Well,
matter.
hold on. But means only matters if you believe you have the means. So, like, if I point an empty gun at you and I pull the trigger, and there's like a click, that's attempted murder.
Right.
Even though the gun was always unloaded, but I believe the gun to be loaded, and I intended to kill you with it. And so, if I believe the magic will kill you, and then I curse you, technically speaking,
I'll
it's
just
tough.
say this.
It's
Look,
tough.
I've read enough D&D novels to know that a wizard in a tower for 100 years is basically the same thing as nuclear warheads, and I'm gonna need assurances
Fair
that this
enough.
person is being responsible
Fair
before
enough.
they try and make a netherese orb or some shit. Like,
If it's like Harry Potter
Well-
shit though, where you can like zap them with a wand, I'd probably be okay with that.
yeah, right. That's just a gun,
Yeah.
except not as good as a gun, and that
Except
just
not
goes to
as
show
good.
that
True.
it was just like
Harry Potter had like an awful like battle system, just awful, just like so stupid. But some other time. But the thing I wanted to ask you, Scott, it was more about like your opening statement. Anyone else can jump in here as well. We are over time, so if someone has to leave, then you can. But you talked about how, and I think it's a very reasonable statement that you made, that if someone's a danger to society, then we should like lock them up. We should put them in to like some mental institution or something like that, right?
yeah.
But I'm thinking of like domestic violence and domestic violence protection. So let's remove the guns just for a second, right? Like we know in these situations, there's very scant evidence, right? There is, there's text messages, maybe, right? Maybe
Yeah.
someone.
It's the same with like rape, right? It's an incredibly
Yes.
difficult thing to prosecute because the evidence is often he said, she said.
Yes. But still, you can. Let's say you can. I don't know the term in law, right? It wouldn't be a preponderance of evidence, but like amass some level of evidence, right? So some sort of evidentiary standard that is not
Isn't it
necessarily
like a balance of probabilities in civil court? Is that the term?
Maybe
Lactoid?
Blackwood.
Like the standard is a balance of probabilities
to grok it.
versus
I'm sorry, for what? You're talking about preponderance?
like. Well, yeah, like what would be the legal? I think he's looking for like we have sufficient evidence to assume that this might be true, right? But isn't necessarily definitive proof that it is true. Isn't that balance of probabilities in civil law usually, not criminal law?
So in civil litigation, it's preponderance of the evidence, which is 50+1. Like, is it just more
Right.
likely? Is it just more likely to be the case than not?
Okay.
Right. With criminal, it's obviously beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a higher standard. And then for like grand
right.
jury, it's like anything pretty much. And then there's also a clear and convincing standard, which is I don't fully like that's like another one. I don't fully understand how that just is distinguished. I think it's somewhere in between, but
Okay. Well, so
I'm gonna get out of here.
Okay, have a good one.
All right, brother.
Charlie, be
Peace,
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Sociologic.
Guys.
Follow Sociologic with 2 L's on Twitter.
I had to remember that when I was looking for your Twitter because I was going to include you in that tweet from last week, right? And I'm like,
I was
'cause
on it.
like I know he Electwood was on that, but I was like,
You're a
hold on.
Muslim now, right?
Ali has a thing. He always says like, "Hey, follow me," and he's like spells it, and I'm like, what does he always say? What has he been saying for like a fucking year, right? And I'm like, it's the 2 L's, yes.
Let it be known that conversation was fucking AIDS, bro. Jesus, man. Jesus. I thought I was crazy, but then I watched it and I was like, ah. But yeah, thank you for having me, and see you guys
Have a
next
good one.
week.
Yeah.
Take care. Be well.
So
Okay, so what's the question?
Sure. So to get to the point, is that uh, in these cases of domestic violence, oftentimes we don't have enough to necessarily convict the person, right? But it seems
Mhm.
um, like especially with one statistics and with their past behavior, that they could pose a danger. Just like the amount of evidence we use for providing an order of protection or and that's order of protection is that what I'm looking for, where you have to stay a certain distance away from someone,
Mm-hmm.
A
you know what I'm
restraining
talking about,
order?
right? Yeah, restraining order. Yes, restraining order. Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's a lower amount of evidence. That doesn't You can't send a person to jail with that, but there's good reason to believe that this person might be in danger, right? In that case, do you think we should have some ability to do something with guns, right? Maybe that's taken
Nope.
away very temporarily, or you think even if
No.
looking at the statistics that women are far more likely to be killed with a partner with a gun in the house, right? When there is a domestic violence situation, not all gun owners, right? But when there's a domestic violence situation, they're far more likely to be killed in that situation. You're saying we should make no allowances for that.
What I'm saying is, if you are going to take someone's guns away because they're a danger or a threat to themselves or others, then you should house them. You should charge them with a crime. You should prove your crime in court. And if you did so with an improper means, right? Like you did it just cuz and then you drop charges or something, right? Then you should face civil litigation from the victims of of those accusations by the state. I think it is very, very dangerous territory when you start giving the state the ability to take away people's firearm ownership or imprison them or involuntarily commit them with limited evidence. That I think that will be used very often. I don't know about very often, but it is a very dangerous situation once you start giving the state that power over people, because the state or liars that are lying about being a part of domestic violence or whatever, right, will use that power to punish innocent people. And so, it is an unfortunate reality that sometimes we lack the evidence necessary to convict or to house or take or engage in some type of protective activity against people who are genuine abusers, but that it is a worse scenario where the state has the ability to do so with limited information and evidence.
Okay,
And that
this is the
I'm
thing I
willing
wanted to
to
talk
accept
about.
some domestic violence deaths for that right.
Does everyone else agree with this?
My only difference is I would. It's a little bit less, I guess, absolutist than Scott's position. I'd be okay, like I said at the beginning, I'd be okay with very limited circumstances. So, if there is some kind of evidence that somebody presents a danger, then I think the police could disarm them for some kind of very short time period, like statutorily set, like I said, a few weeks. I would also agree, and something this guy said during his opening that I agree with.
I'd be fine with that,
I don't
so
think
long as they charge them with the crime or they are civilly liable if they don't.
I'm okay without charging with a crime, but what I would do is, in the event that they do take away their guns for a few weeks, the state is on a strict timetable, and the burden of proof is on them to demonstrate why this person can't have a gun. And I would make so most of the time public defenders just operate on criminal cases. I would allow public defenders to represent people on this as well, like these specific situations where, so if you get your guns taken away and you can't afford a lawyer, you shouldn't have to pay for a lawyer to help you in this case. And again,
More socialism.
Look, I can imagine scenarios similar to taking the keys away from a drunk driver, or somebody's having a break from reality, which isn't really a crime, but if somebody's having an actual manic episode or some kind of schizophrenic break, or even just temporary insanity, which happens where somebody's genuinely detached from reality.
But in all of those scenarios, when I say or they must charge them with a crime, I'm adding the caveat or involuntarily commit them because they need to be involuntarily committed. And then allow the doctors in that facility to determine, allow experts in that facility to determine whether or not they should be released.
I get that. I can just imagine, like, okay, that's fair, but I can imagine scenarios where, like, it's not quite a problem to where, like, we want to involuntarily commit somebody, but it's, like, just enough of a problem where we don't want them to have a gun, right? So there's, like, the kind of this, like, middle point where I agree. If it's so bad that they're, like, actually freaking the fuck out and blowing, like, smashing out windows, involuntarily commit them while we kind of try to get the shit in order. But if somebody's just, like, at that level where, like, they're saying weird things, they're demonstrating some kind of break from reality, they are behaving kind of awkwardly with their gun to the point where it's like, hey, you normally don't operate that way. Why are you loading it? Why are you doing this? What, like, and there's just, like, kind of the answers are kind of bizarre.
I understand that critique.
Yeah.
To me, it's a binary, right?
Okay.
And the reason I say it's a binary is you either have the mental capacity to be a moral actor or agent as an individual in this moment, which can be a temporary thing, or you do not. And if you are in this, like, weird gray area, then either we need to commit you and let experts determine whether or not it is a gray area or not a gray area, or B, we need to let you go. I don't like this weird litigated gray area where we can't tell whether or not you're a moral actor or not, so we take away your guns, or we, and then, like,
right. I understand the concern. The problem is, like, I have a similar concern, but, like, because here's what's going to happen. Okay, like, I watch a lot of cops, and I watch a lot of, and the cops get called these situations where, I mean, people are just fucking nuts, and I'm telling you, like, in the event where the cops do not have this option available to them to just simply disenfranchise somebody from their guns for a few weeks, and the only other option is we're going to involuntarily commit this person, they're going to do that a whole lot more than just take away the person's guns, right? Because now the option is, here's somebody acting strange, not quite to the point where I'd want to arrest them and, like, lock them in a hole, but to the point where I really don't want them to have a gun, right? I'm gonna, if the only options I have is a binary, either just walk away or lock them up. The cop, like, more often, the cops are gonna look at that and say, lock them up,
locking people up,
grab people. Like,
yeah,
I'm not.
You've just explained one of the many reasons why we should not have police.
Okay, sure, okay, but we do.
Yeah, fell into his trap, Lactoid.
No, it's not a trap. It's not a trap. But we do, and so what I'm saying is, as long as we're operating within a rule-based system, as immoral and evil as it is.
Okay, but see, here's the trade-off. Here's the real trade-off, right? Mm-hmm. Is we have option A, option B, both with the state police, the police being the monopoly on justice and violence, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Option A is they have a binary decision.
Yep.
Now, this can go in one of two ways. Either we can handle it appropriately, where that binary decision requires evidence and requires a strict standard, and we punish police officers that violate this consistently, or option A can turn into what you described, right? Where we don't punish officers and we don't do anything about it, because that tends to be the trend. It's probably the more likely scenario. I will admit that, right? And a lot of people end up getting involuntarily committed based off of no evidence, and we have to figure that out through civil
or weak evidence
and begin to figure it out. Right. Or weak evidence. Option B is they have three choices. They can do nothing, they can take your guns away, or they can involuntarily commit you. And I also believe that there's a trade-off here, because if they have three options, I believe a lot of cops will take people's guns. And there's no fucking way, just like cops are going to abuse the ability that they can involuntarily commit people, the police departments are going to abuse this supposed timeline of you get your guns back in 3 weeks, and they're going to bitch about how they don't have the budget to adjudicate these cases. And there's going to be a fuck ton of people that have basically just gotten a new name for red flag laws, where everybody that the cops don't like don't get guns.
Right, but fair enough.
And people are going to die from that.
But the fix is that, so, like, in shall issue states, for example, for any kind of concealed carry license, the state must issue as long as you meet the requirements. Like, there's no, like, subjective analysis. You meet the requirements, you get an issued permit. What I'm proposing is something like similar to where, like, unless there's like a 2-week time period where unless the state can bring a case to your public defender, like that a judge would determine it necessary to remove your guns for you, a judge, like full due process here, then within 2 weeks they are mandated to give it back to you. Like they have to give it
And
back.
what I'm saying is that the same argumentation that cops will involuntarily commit a lot of people and abuse this
I
power
know.
is the exact same argumentation that I would use, that the taking of people's guns away will be abused. And you have tons of police departments just now where we have civil asset forfeiture and they're like stealing people's TVs and shit,
Yeah.
right? Like they will abuse any power that you give them.
I assure you that abuses will happen. In fact,
Right.
we could remove all police brutality by removing police, as you observed prior. But what we're saying is that, like, in the grand scheme of utilitarian consequentialist calculus that the
Right,
rest of
but
us live in,
Yeah,
to some extent,
but doing an internal critique, right? Doing an internal critique, I'm accepting that trade-off.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the superior trade-off is to not give them a gray area that they can abuse, but to give them a heavily regulated emergency case that only applies in emergencies. And yes, some women or men will die from abusive partners because cops showed up and there was no evidence of anything and they couldn't take guns away. But the inverse is that you're going to have red flag laws abused against non-abusers, and then those people are going to now know that that person is disarmed for weeks at a time, and they're going to kill them knowing that they don't have firearms available to them because the state took away their right of self-defense, or at least the means by which they can exercise their right of self-defense. Both situations are going to end in deaths. And what I'm saying is we should err on the side of giving the state less power as opposed to giving them additional options to abuse power.
Let's let in. I want to hear from Doobie because we haven't heard from Doobie in a while. So yeah, what are your thoughts on? Have you been following these, Doobie? If you need a recap, let me know.
I've been semi-following. I've been working on the side while you guys talk, to be honest with you.
That's fine, friend. But yeah, so basically we're talking about. So what I was asking Scott, right? Scott, in his opening statement way back when, talked about like, hey, if we want to deal with a person who's dangerous, right? Well, then we should use, he wouldn't say these words, but we should use, justified state violence, right? To like take away their freedom here. So like put them into some mental institution, right? We just say we'll lock them up because you have shown that you're a danger to yourself or to others. What myself and what Lactoid have been responding with is that there seems to be a spectrum here, right? Our friend Scott saying it's a binary, but I think there's a spectrum in which there's a level of danger or there's a level of evidence available, right? That is below the threshold.
It's not my argument that there isn't a spectrum when it comes to investigation and evidence. It is my position that there is a binary in reality, whether or not we can determine that, but that there is a binary of whether or not someone is a moral actor, moral agent of mind and body to make moral decisions or not.
Okay.
But I totally agree that it can be difficult to determine that, right? Psychology is like one of the worst soft sciences, as much as I love it, and the ability of humans to psychoanalyze, especially retarded cops, is very low.
So understood, friend. So anyway, what I was asking is like, well, should we have some sort of allowance below the threshold of literally locking someone up, right? Sending them to a health institution. Should we have some sort of system in which we can remove guns from the home temporarily? Now, I agree with my friend Lactwood when he talked about a very systemic, a very regulated way of doing this, right? That has to involve a legal process rather than the cops just saying, hey, like we're going to take away your guns, right? Actually, agree with what the way he put it. But yeah, do you agree with that? Do you say that, hey, like it's either one or the other, right? Either we remove the person from society, or do you think there might be another option might be to use?
I think you should do both. I think you should remove them from society until they are stable, and also take their guns for a prolonged period.
No, we should let them have guns in the asylum.
Let them take each other out, right?
We're gonna have being sane and insane
Shall
places
not be
2.0.
infringed.
I think the bar for being out, walking around in society, should be lower than the bar for owning a weapon that could kill people easily.
It's fair.
Yeah, but I do have to go.
From a consequential perspective, I mean, yeah, I mean, I understand the logic behind that. I disagree with it, but I mean, then it just becomes a philosophy debate, right?
Yeah,
But-
and
so I
I
just
totally
agree to
understand your
disagree on
position, so,
that.
like that person could just run over someone with a car or something, right? Like I get it. Like I understand what you're saying. It's just
I'm just saying
the cost
my
benefit
biggest
analysis
position
seems like not to
doing
be-
the cost benefit analysis, right? Doing the internal critique is we should be very wary of any powers that we give the state to use against people.
yeah.
And that we should be very cautious in that regard. And so this concept of like, oh, we don't have enough evidence to determine that you're crazy, but we have some reason to believe that we can take your guns away is, in my opinion, a very scary thing to institute into law, and that we
Yeah,
should be
for
very
sure.
careful of engaging in that behavior.
And
Like,
we've
I
seen how the
totally
Trump
understand that
administration has
some peop-
used existing law to stretch existing law to go after like political enemies, right? We've seen them do this.
Absolutely.
And plenty of
We saw
administrations
Obama
have
do
done
it to a
this. Yeah,
certain
exactly.
degree, but like with the
So-
IRS and stuff. But
I gotta
yeah,
go,
Trump
guys,
is
by the
definitely
way.
taking
Yeah, I have
that
to go
hey,
to
peace,
Bachelor.
peace Lactoid,
But yeah,
taking
I totally
that
go very
ball
Trump
all
as
the way
well.
to the end zone.
Okay, I definitely go though. I would talk to you
I
guys
have,
later.
I have
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Lactoid TV. We're going to go ahead and raid on out into Rob. And I will catch you guys on the flip.
Hassan, just ignore the point. Ignore the